Is there anybody in the room that would like to make a member comment? Right, yeah, I heard can you step up to the mic, please? Please say your name, your address, and you have 2 minutes.
Can I interrupt really quick? Can
Yes.
you guys change the camera? We see the camera on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
Oh, we're working on that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep, good flag.
Can't have everything.
Or alternatively, everybody can move to that camera, to that side of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready? All right. My name is Colin Mills, 1932B Villa Ridge Drive. I'm a project manager for the Reston Accessibility Committee, or RAC for short, and I'm here tonight in support of the Lakes Equity Working Group's final report. For those who don't know us, RAC is a committee of the Reston Citizens Association. We were founded in 2008 to advocate for barrier-free access for people with physical disabilities. Our goal is to secure safe and comfortable access to shops, offices, and public facilities for customers and residents with mobility impairments. First of all, I commend the board for assembling the working group to study this important issue and put the spotlight on populations that too frequently go unnoticed. When Bob Simon founded Reston, he envisioned a community that considered the importance and dignity of everyone as the focal point of planning. While we fulfilled that vision in many ways, there are ways in which we still fall short. Reston's lakes are the crown jewels of our community. They offer a wealth of recreational opportunities: sailing, kayaking, paddleboarding, fishing, walking, or just sitting and quietly contemplating nature's majesty. But the working group's report highlights the ways in which these crown jewels aren't shared equally with all Restonians. I often tell people that my work with RAC has caused me to see the world with new eyes. When I look at a place through the eyes of someone with a disability, I realize that things that seem trivial to me can be insurmountable barriers. A curb that blocks a pathway, a hill too steep for someone in a wheelchair to climb, an accessible parking space that really isn't. If you can't access the lakes because there's a steep hill or a staircase blocking your route, or because you don't have a place to store your kayak or canoe, or because you can't find information about the lakes in your language, those barriers prevent you from sharing in Reston's treasure. And while those barriers may seem invisible to those who have no disability, or speak fluent English, or have plenty of space to store their equipment, they're real and they're substantial. To the members of the board, I'd invite you to do what the working group has done and what we do. Visit one of the lakes and see it through the eyes of someone who uses a wheelchair, doesn't own a car, doesn't speak English. You may find that you don't feel welcome and that this beautiful place isn't open to you. It's a painful feeling and contrary to the spirit of the open community that Bob Simon envisioned. I'd also encourage the board to accept the working group's recommendations and act on them. This report represents years of painstaking work to understand the access barriers around our lakes and suggest solutions. It's now up to you to turn those suggestions into reality. This may not be easy. A lot of the recommendations will require real investments of money and staff time, and I know both of those are finite resources. I know you have a lot of important priorities and competing demands to balance, but making the lakes, our crown jewels, fully accessible to all Restonians isn't a luxury or a pie-in-the-sky dream. It's central to the open, inclusive place that we are meant to be. If you share Bob Simon's vision of making Reston a community for everyone, I urge you to turn these recommendations into reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other member comments? Yes, please. Name, address, and then 3 minutes? 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Jody Douglas. I live at 2401 Jack Stay Terrace in Reston. I've been was a county employee for some 30 years. I ran a couple of diversion programs, CDI and the Alcohol Safety Action Program. Since I've retired from that, I've been in the Reston Garden Club. I'm working right now with the Reston Herndon Tree Rescuers, which cut invasive vines off the trees. I'm in my 3rd year now of becoming a master gardener. So all of this has led me to be really concerned about the environment and what's happening in Reston and around the world, I guess, that we're all seeing an insect decline, a decline in the insect, the bird population. We need diversity. We need our native plants. And I'm here to talk about deer in Reston. And I know it's not a subject that you want to hear about, but everyone I talk to, of course, you know, I have a slanted view because I talk to environmentalists and gardeners and those kinds of people, but everyone is saying that there's just been an explosion in the deer population in the last year or two. and that they're eating things now that they have never eaten. I live, of course, along the Glade Stream Valley, and we have a rest and easement right behind our house, so they come into our property from both directions. I've been for the last 3 years removing all the invasive plants from my yard, which was ivy and Japanese pachysandra that I planted myself previously, and trying to plant just native plants. And about half of them are every year just demolished by the deer. I mean, I spray them, I do everything I can, but there are just so many. I just can't keep ahead of them. And we need them because we need the diversity, and we need to support the native insects and the native birds that need just those plants to survive. I work also at the, I volunteer to work at the Nature Center, and their so-called demonstration garden out front has just been demolished this year. There was nothing there. Abby was showing it to me last week when I was at their place, and it was bad. I know you've all read and participated in the Razor report, which is excellent, and it talks about the overpopulation of deer in Reston. There was a Fairfax Now article that just came out by a woman named Angela Woolsey, I believe, who said the 3 main problems in Reston are deer overpopulation, stormwater runoff, and the climate change that we're seeing. Our oaks are in decline. And every tiny baby oak that I can find, I put in my yard, I have to cage them or they're eaten almost immediately. So I'm here to let you know that there is community support for culling the deer herd in Reston. I know they're not allowed to come onto Reston property, although the county and the people around us, I know in Lake Fairfax Park, where I do tree rescue, and Crabtree, and I believe one other, they do cull the deer there, which of course sends the deer to Reston because it's quiet here, they know they're safe. Then they're multiplying now. They're having 2 and 3 fawns at a time, which means that there are just too many for us to support in the land that we have. I've started a petition, or I and a friend have started, who's going to speak as well, have started a petition, and I've just been talking with the people in my immediate neighborhood. And as I said, I live just south of Hunterswood School along the Great Lakes Street
I don't want to
Valley.
interrupt you, but I'm going to have to just keep the
I'm sorry,
meeting. I'm going to have to interrupt you because time is up. So do you mind
Okay.
wrapping up and
Okay,
then?
I was just going to pass out that petition and let you know that I just talked to 2 people in my general area. And there's just a lot of community support out here for culling the deer. I know you'd get blowback if you brought it up, but there's support for it.
Can you stay there for a minute because I think a board member. Oh, okay, sorry. Next member, please. Name, address, and then 3 minutes.
My name is Jane Dreyfus. I'm at 10902 Quimby Point Lane in Reston. I've been a resident here for 42 years, and like so many, came because of the open space, because of the love of wildlife, the love of nature, and never thought I would need to get up in front of the Reston Board of Directors to really advocate for deer management in Reston. I concur with everything that Jody said. I'm also a master gardener and a member of the Reston Garden Club. The devastation of the native plants is increasing. Whenever we went round with our petition, people had things to say about what experience they had had with deer. Lyme disease, and there is in Fairfax County an increase in Lyme disease. Car accidents, and that another documented fact on the wildlife resource page for Fairfax government is that there has been chronic wasting disease detected in deer in Fairfax County. These are huge problems, and I feel that because I'm a Reston resident and because wildlife means so much to me and nature, that we need to be stewards. And when we have a problem that, yes, we did cause, we have a responsibility to come up with solutions for that problem. Fairfax County and Arlington County have studied this issue for many, many years, spent a lot of resources on it, and concluded after much research that culling the deer using scheduled professional sharpshooters is the most effective and humane approach. Only allowing bow hunting on personal property is not effective and also not humane. So I'm going to request that the Reston Association, that the Board of Directors consider the following. First, identify deer management as a Reston Association priority. Work with the Fairfax County officials to get assistance on managing Reston's deer population. We have over 1,350 acres, I believe that's the correct number, of open space here. We have our own problem here. So work with Fairfax County's deer management program. Mine the data that Fairfax County and Arlington County have already gathered to see what of that data applies to Reston. Designate an RA official to have responsibility for deer management and provide the funds in the budget to gather the data and resources Reston needs to implement an effective deer management program. And I know there's a lot of community support, and I also know just anecdotally and also from speaking to members that there's support here, and I really appreciate that, and I just ask you to do what you can because, you know, we don't want to hear about accidents and Lyme disease, and we certainly don't want to wipe out this beautiful space. Thank
We will
you.
consider this. Margaret? So, you have a question?
Just had a question for staff. Am I incorrect? Isn't this something we already work with Walter on?
So yes, and actually we have heard some concerns in pockets within the community. So President Johnson is not here tonight, but we did raise it to Walter, and he has certainly offered to help us work with animal control and/or neighborhoods to look at where it might be happening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member comments? Anybody online? Seeing none, we're moving to item D, consent calendar. Is there a motion? I believe a peer wanted to remove item B. Is that still the intent?
I would just like to update item B to because those resolutions were edited and put out on the website. And somebody give me the date. Brittany, was it Wednesday? The new versions went out on the public website.
Yes.
So if we can just edit the consent to that version of what was Wednesday, the 27th, that we are approving the resolutions as edited on the 27th.
Okay. Are there any objections to approving the consent calendar as is?
I so move.
Okay. All those in favor?
Second.
We need a second.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I think I heard everybody. If you object, you can call yourself out. Approved. Next, volunteer interviews. Who do we have first? Heather?
Heather Rao.
Thank you so much to all the volunteers. Thank you so much for coming. I think you'll hear thank yous from all of us, and also a PSA. We will not make a decision as soon as you speak, and we'll go into executive session, and we don't know how long that'll take. So we'll contact you tomorrow in regards to the outcome.
Thank you
So
for
feel free to go
clarifying
home.
that. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
My name is Heather Rao. I have applied to be an architect member of the Design Review Board. I have been an architect for more than 23 years. I've been licensed for 18 of those years. Most of my career has been spent working in the Washington, D.C. area. I have worked, I actually have a master's degree in architecture and one also in urban design. I've worked on projects as small as tiny bathroom renovations for single-family homes and as large as 300-plus acre master plans. So a little bit of everything in between. Currently, I do work mostly in the single-family realm. I work, I'm an independent contractor working with 2 friends, and I've been doing that for the last several years. My family moved to Reston in 2021, but I actually moved to Reston in 1998 for the first time, and lived here for a few years as I commuted using the bus lines to get into Washington, D.C. at that time, park and ride, and did not know that I would be coming back to Reston. And 20 years later, we moved back half a mile from where I had lived before, and we knew immediately that we were home. This was home, and we have loved getting to be a part of this community. We love the outdoors aspect of it. We love the people that we meet here. We love all the opportunities that are here. So we're very committed to Reston and the Reston way. As a designer and an architect, I have written design guidelines. I have followed design guidelines. I have gone before various boards, historic, zoning, you name it, I probably have done it in the course of my career. And so I really understand those things and value what that brings to a community like this.
Thank you so much. Does Margaret?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first would be, there are a number of my peers, I believe, who agree with me that we need a little updating to our guidelines in various ways. But if, for example, something came across the DRB in front of you and it said, for example, excessive anything. So excessive sound, excessive lights, excessive whatever. What would be your interpretation in general of what might be excessive?
What might be excessive? Are you asking if someone brought a complaint against a neighbor saying that they had excessive noise, excessive lights, excessive something?
An application came across DRB and say had 100 lights. Would you consider that excessive for one home?
For one home, I would probably have to look back at the design guidelines, see what's written out there, and then work with the homeowner to understand why, if there is no clarity in the design guidelines, why they feel like this is appropriate for their house and for their community.
Okay. And then the second being, obviously, Reston is an older community, right? We've been around a couple of years. And while there is always room for improvement and advancement, what is your perception of holding true to the aesthetics that Reston has generally held to for all these years?
That's a great question. It's a very interesting question, too, because there's some clear differences between the older portions of Reston and some of the newer portions of Reston that you see out the window. And I think it's important. A lot of my work is in historic districts, whether it's in Washington, D.C. or other areas. So I have also put a lot of time and study into matching historic principles with design that's appropriate for those principles so that it doesn't necessarily want to look like it was built in 1920, but it shouldn't upstage the things that were built in 1920. And I think I would take the same approach here.
Thank you.
Any other board members?
Yes, may I ask a question?
Of course. Go
Thank
right
you.
ahead.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for volunteering. We really appreciate that. As you said, you're going to hear that from everybody. In your application, you indicate that you have attended meetings, correct? The DRB meetings?
I have
Or you have observed?
I've observed one of the panel meetings.
Good.
Yes.
Based on your experience, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't feel comfortable answering that, just say you don't know. Based on your experience as an architect and the work that you have done, I would assume you may have familiarity with other homeowner associations, not necessarily the size of Reston, but similar to Reston. And I wonder if you have any ideas, any opinion. Again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but general comments relative to what you have observed at a DRB meeting and the year 2025. What any thoughts, anything that comes to your mind that you think that maybe we should think about updating, modifying, anything along those lines? And I'm happy if you keep your answer general.
I think the key for all of us is for any application to the DRB and any review by the DRB to be a collaborative effort. I think the more time that property owners and property managers and developers and homeowners spend working with staff before they reach that point in the process of their application to understand what is and isn't part of the guidelines, the more successful of a process it will be for everyone. I'm not sure that answered your question, but that's my 2 cents after having watched one of the meetings.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity.
Next up, we have God's Day.
Gosde Tanieri. Been asked to unmute and start your video. Here you are.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining. Feel free to tell us about yourself and your interest.
Yes. I am Gosde Tanieri. I live in 11105 Timberhead Lane within the unique wharf community in South Lakes District. I am being interviewed today for design professional position within the Design Review Board. So first of all, before telling you about myself, I am currently in another country 7 hours ahead of you. It's about 2 a.m. for me. The reason I'm joining from here is because I came for a vacation to visit family about 6 weeks ago and blew my kneecap due to an accident and had emergency kneecap reconstruction surgery and will be returning this Saturday finally. But it's a little bit late in the evening for me, and I'm just joining through the video because of that and not in person. I am excited to return and cleared by my doctors here to return. Having said that, a little bit about me. I am a licensed architect in Virginia since 2003, about 22 years. I have been practicing architecture in DC and Virginia since 1996, about 30 years. Right after I graduated my master's degree from Virginia Tech in architecture, I worked in several firms, firms that have specialties in community centers and firehouses and multifamily residences and such, and many different building types. But over the past 20 years or so, I've been specializing in working in multifamily architecture. I currently own my own architecture practice in Alexandria, Virginia. We specialize in architecture, interior design, and branding and marketing. I own my firm since about 10 years, since 2015. In my practice, we specialize, like I said, in multifamily residential design and single-family design. These include renovations, additions, and new construction. Our line of expertise, specifically in DC projects, 98% of our work is in DC, includes historic renovations and rehabilitations of buildings. Over these years and continuously, I present designs to various design review boards, BZA in DC, including not limited to Alexandria Architecture Review Board, historic staff reviews, DC Georgetown, Old Georgetown Board reviews, Commission of Fine Arts hearings, many ANC meetings within DC, different communities, including condominium associations and HOAs and other associations within the body of our work. I have always been on the applicant side for these hearings. I have not participated as a board member or a design professional giving opinion from the community side. But I am familiar enough with the process over the 30 years and how this works. I've been living in Virginia since 1993. Before that, I lived in another country. And Since 2010, I live in Reston, about 15 years in the wharf community around South Lakes. I love Reston with all its parks and recreations and shopping areas and new development areas. And I've been closely watching that since 2010 because I'm invested in this community. Okay, within my 30 years of experience, I designed built environments mostly. And I believe it is time for me to start giving back to my community, seasoned enough to give back to the community. Previously, due to family and work life stress, I have not been able to spend any time to give back to my community as volunteer. Since my kids left home, I now have time to invest in Reston community and serve as a volunteer position. I believe my experience will serve well in this design professional position. As a homeowner, I have not had to make any requests to design review board yet for 15 years because we live in a cluster, pretty tight-knit, community, and exterior changes have not been necessary for us. But all the replacements around the house have been in-kind maintenance replacements, and I haven't had to be on the applicant side for design review board. I have attended one panel meeting and one full design review board meeting to hear and observe. And I found it pretty civilized compared to some of the ANC meetings I regularly attend in DC.
Well, thank you so much for that glowing recap. First of all, speedy recovery, get home safe. You get a Medal of Honor for just being up at 2 a.m. trying to be part of DRB, so that's like a golden star in my book. But does anybody have any questions? Margaret, yes, go.
To be fair, I'll ask you the same questions I asked the last applicant. Some of us are aware that we need to make some updates and changes to our guidelines. However, as it stands, some of our language refers to the word excessive. So if an applicant came through to you and it was a single-family home with 100 lights, would you consider that excessive?
So lighting is a specialty. I mean, there's 100 lights, are they floodlights? And there's a lot of technicalities about these lights, if they're just little LEDs, but technicalities need to be reviewed and also reviewed with lumens and other aspects of lighting, as well as reviewing the request with the homeowner, why this is necessary, this excessive lighting. And also, I would have to refer to design guidelines for lighting and controls around the neighborhood requiring noise and other excessive means. I think, collaboration in these situations and approaching these things in a civilized manner is probably the best. And then the design guidelines kind of, give us the authority and interpretation of what is required in this case.
Okay. And then my second question, Reston has been around a few years. We have, certain look, a certain way we've done things. Obviously, there is a way to keep up with times and kind of modernize things. What would be your solution for pairing those two?
Well, like Heather before me has expressed that concern, I find it very a very good response. As a matter of fact, I work in DC with buildings actually built around before 1900s, and marrying what's new and replacing immaterial and in kind and historic aspects is a very fine line, and we really work hard towards getting it right. I think it needs to be reviewed within the time it was built and the style and the guidelines that have, the clusters have come up with. And it needs a careful investigation and collaboration to come up with new design, bringing new design into an older community.
Any other board members? Well, thank you so much. Get some sleep, and we'll be in touch.
I believe John Farrell indicated he might have some questions.
Oh, he did? Sorry, I'm not, okay. John, do you have a question? Oh, he has a.
Not for the volunteer,
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, great. Next, we have Eden Anderson for the Land Use Advisory Committee. Is Eden available? There you are. Thank you so much for volunteering. Please, a little bit about yourself and your interest. That'd be great.
Yes. Sorry I couldn't be there today. I may not have a blown knee, but I broke my toe.
Well, speedy
so
recovery
sorry,
as
can't-
well. Like light on the toes.
I'm trying to be light on the toes and not touch a gas pedal with it. So I'm here my address is 11653 North Shore Drive. I live in the Fairway Apartments. I just had my 1-year anniversary here. I may have only been here in Reston for 1 year, but I've been trying to get here and live here since 2017. I joined a support group in Reston and I fell in love with it after I started doing brunch here at Lake Ann Plaza once a week. And I've been trying to get here ever since, and I'm so happy here. I'm interviewing today for to be a land use committee member. I learned about this position from Bob Patrine while talking to him while standing in line to vote. It was a long line, and we were talking about Reston issues, and I was asking him how I could be more involved, and he recommended that I join a meeting. So I joined the land use committee meeting 2 months ago and was very interested in how I could participate and how I could contribute. I currently work for Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. It's a regulatory agency, not a part of Fairfax County, but we work closely with Fairfax County as a collaborator to support conservation efforts. I am a coordinator for the Conservation Assistance Program, which is an urban cost share program that provides financial and technical assistance to property owners who would like to manage stormwater on their property using environmental friendly practices. And through this work at Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District, I've become a stormwater professional. I have a certificate in Chesapeake Bay landscaping professional and a certificate to be a Chesapeake urban stormwater professional. And I got my degree at George Mason for environmental and sustainability studies. For the Conservation Assistance Program, I act as a liaison to our technical review committee and to the Virginia Steering Committee to present our applications and that we are seeking approval for and that we are seeking reimbursement for. And that's it, I think. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Eden. I think, John, do you want to kick it off? I think you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Thank you for volunteering, Ms. Anderson, and thank you for coming to one of our Land Use Committee meetings. RA Board of Directors have adopted, trying to count, is it 6? Somebody can correct me, 6 or 7 resolutions regarding land use. I'm curious, do you have any difficulty supporting each and every one of those resolutions?
No, I do not. I read through all of them and I don't have any problems with them.
Thank you.
Any follow-up or, okay. Anybody else want to ask any questions? Yeah, one more.
Not a question, just a comment. Again, thank you for being willing to volunteer your time.
Thank you so much, and we will be in touch tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Next up, we have Dave for Fiscal Committee.
I'm Dave Kerr, current chair of the Fiscal Committee, maybe to be the Finance Committee someday. Yeah, just so I'd like to, I think my overture to my credentials is in my packet there, so I won't go through that. But September will be my end of my 8th year with the Fiscal Committee. 5.5 of those years has been as chair. We've had a lot of good financial people come and go through this committee. And I dare say that right now, I think we have a great committee, a committee that has a very diverse set of financial backgrounds, as well as a committee that speaks up and talks about all the issues, which is what I like to see. I think that's beneficial to the committee, to the staff, to the board, even the members. So I think a lot to be said there for the group. But because of that, in particular, I'd love to do it one more year if I could. So, and as far as I know, I have no physical ailments at this time, but I'd be open to any questions or concerns you may have.
We have people who can help you out with that.
Yeah, I have a series of, Madam Chair, I have a series of questions for Mr.
Please.
Kerr, if I may.
Yep, go.
Mr. Kerr, I have 100 questions for you. Which one would you like me to start with? No, I'm just kidding. Dave, thank you very much for all the work that you put into this and all the 8 years of your service. Fantastic. And thank you for volunteering again. That's all.
Thank you.
Any others? Yep, go right ahead, Matt.
Yeah, again, just a comment, not a question. Thank you for your service. Really, thank you for your leadership on the committee.
I guess I'll give you a hard one. How do you develop new talent so that at some point, you said you have one more year, how do you build a talent pipeline to have your succession? A lot of times, leadership volunteer appointments are harder than actually volunteering on a committee.
The hope was we'd be able to retire the Fiscal Committee after that. You wouldn't need.
And it's okay. But it's a valid question. At some point, we should address it.
There are
holistically.
probably 5 people on the committee right now who could step in. Okay. By the way, there are 6 of us on the committee. But all of them have the background and experience. Scott's been a chair of the committee. Sean has been a chair of the committee. Bob has been treasurer to the committee, to the association. Lisa holds it all together for us as vice chair. She's been vice chair for a couple of years now, and she'll be speaking in a minute. John Kennedy has been a great participator. So everyone on this committee is able to do that. The question is going to be whether they want to or not. But I think we have great candidates and won't be any problem at all.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have our last volunteer interview, Lisa for the Fiscal Committee.
Hello, I'm Lisa Turkletaub. I've been serving on the committee since I believe July or August of 2020. And I'm just really proud of the work that has happened on that committee since I've been there. We've really evolved the issues to be, I think, relevant to what a finance committee that serves a $20 million organization should be. And I echo the thoughts that Dave had. I think this is a really great committee that we have with a really great management team. And so I'm really excited about the work that we can do together in the future to serve the community.
Anybody have any questions for Lisa?
I offer the same comments that I gave Dave. Lisa, thank you very much. I really appreciate your service.
Thank you. I believe that brings us now to item F, Friends of Reston update. Kathleen Driscoll, please step up to the plate.
Ordinarily, I would say thank you for just giving me some time to talk. But this evening, I am thrilled that I have not just the RA board, but I also have the fiscal committee, because the work that the Friends do directly relates to both of you. So I have a double thank you. I'm really tickled to be here. I want to start to make sure that we're on the same page. The Friends of Reston is a 501c3 IRS designated organization. That means we live by charity, literally. Reston Association is a 501c4 organization. It has members and it has the legal authority to compel payment. That's the annual assessment. The Friends of Reston can't do that. We don't stand on street corners and beg, but we do ask people to donate and to support us. And that's why the two organizations work together, is because we, the Friends of Reston, have the ability to supply, augment, enhance the things that RA does. We are a separate, freestanding, federally designated and registered organization. We're not a subsidiary of anyone. But I wanted to make certain that everyone heard me say that. So now we'll get on to this evening's update, which I'm calling Moving Forward, and you can count on it. Life can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived forwards. Or so says Søren Kierkegaard. Now, that I updated you that way 8 months ago. I gave you the history of the Friends, how they came into being and what they had done, and then I talked about what we hoped we would do. Tonight, I'd like to tell you a little bit differently, that we are currently moving on. We have some changes that I can relate, and I'm very happy to do that. Since January of 2025, which was the last time I spoke to you, we held our inaugural Evening of Friends. We recognized 3 special Friends of Reston with a certificate and planting trees to commemorate their generous support. Our silent auction enticed guests with items as various as original art, lunch with Supervisor Alcorn, drawing class with internationally recognized artist and medical illustrator, landscaping services. The silent auction in 2025 will be even more interesting. We have a couple of probably surprising items. I'm hoping that the whole board will have an opportunity to join us. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank, there were 2 sitting board members who joined us that evening, and we are grateful for your support. That evening was a success, and it is reflected positively in our balance sheet, which is always a nice thing to happen. I need to acknowledge the huge efforts of the fundraising committee. Maggie Edwards, Suzanne White, Marcus Luzak, Jimmy Norcross, and they were all led quite ably by Mary Jo Patterson. Never fear if you missed the 2025 event, because we're going to have one in 2026 too. And planning is very much underway. It would be great if you could join us and experience firsthand the fine work of the fundraising committee. In April, we held our board officer elections. We changed our election date to mirror the RA procedures. Our goal is to foster closer collaboration with the RA board and put us both on a similar operational calendar. There was no change in leadership. Jimmy Norcross is still the vice president. Marcus Luzak is still the treasurer. Please excuse me, make that secretary. And Todd Zinicola is the treasurer. I'm telling you, if I don't do a little bit more succession planning myself, I may be here again next year. Now, a quick word about Todd Zinicola. You probably don't recognize the name, but you might remember his face from the press releases or the Friday RA newsletter. He's a Fairfax County judge. He's the one who administered the oath of office to Mac Cummins when Mac was appointed to the Community Common Interest Board by the governor. It's really nice to have those kinds of people serve, volunteer on the Friends of Reston board. As you are, we are full bore in budget development and planning. Happily, I can tell you that so far we have approved for the draft considerations 15 different projects and programs. Evening with Friends, the Medevity Matching Funds, Commemorative Bench Program, Friends Fall 5K, Friends of Trees Program, the Michael Lyons Jazz Festival, Reds Roundup, the RA website roundup, the Senior Movie Days Spring Festival, the School Pool Program, Totally Trucks, Volunteer Corporate Projects, the Winterfest, and Youth Scholarships. Nothing's final yet, and we may just have to add another fundraiser, but we're working hard to accomplish all of that. Mark your calendars now. October 5th is the annual Fall 5K. Believe me, it's an exhilarating way to start a Sunday morning. A couple of the RA board members will run, right? And a couple of the Friends of Reston board members will run, of course. A couple of us are just gonna walk. At this point in my life, I don't have to race for anything. I hope you'll all join us. It's going to be a great event. It's the 5th year, actually, and it has been exceedingly popular. Beaucoup thanks to RA staff member Dan Marinick and the fundraising committee members Maggie Edwards, Marcus Luzak, and Jimmy Norcross. They're the people that originated and shepherd this event each year. Joining our 2 other fundraisers will be the Michael Lyons Jazz Festival. It's September 21st from 3 to 8 at Lake Ann Plaza. There's no admission. And we do expect on-site donations like we had last year. But this year, for the first time, we're going to be offering chair rentals. And it's expected to be very popular. We're going to do it so that it's a cash-free event. Everything will be handled online. Don't tell anybody, but we'll probably have a couple extra chairs to rent on site. You're invited to attend, and of course, the most comfortable way is going to be to make your chair reservation. So it'll be on the Friends webpage on the RA website as soon as all the details are finalized. Oh, and one other thing. October 21st is going to be the Friends annual meeting. So you might want to think about that too. As always, RA board members are encouraged to share ideas for new endeavors with us. New perspectives and diverse approaches will help us expand a multi-generational outreach and programming effort. We do support the senior movie. but the majority of our RA support is directed towards youth-serving programs. Wouldn't it be great just to sort of broaden that? I mean, there's so many different generations here in Reston. It would be lovely to include more people. And your suggestions are very welcome. We do have a youth scholarship committee. Kia Cole-Hines and Herb Baffo worked with 2 high school seniors, Haley Kowalski and Marissa Miller, to develop a program format for high school senior scholarships that would be funded through the Friends annually based on funds available. It starts this year, 2025-26, and the scholarship will be awarded to those who satisfy the academic requirements and embody the mission of the Friends of Reston. It would be available to graduating Reston seniors in an equal amount to their graduating year. What does that mean? It means that the class of 2026 would be awarded $2,026. And they can use that for whatever they wish to advance their next steps in life. Our proposed budget has slots for 3: South Lakes High School, Herndon High School, and students who are educated at home or in a private school. Continue to build on our Winterfest activities. In 2024, we donated 60 trees, and they went to families in need. Budget permitting, we're hoping to donate 80 trees in 2025. And remember, if that purchase, or actually any purchase that is Friends related, is made by the Friends, there's a 6% savings because the Friends is tax exempt. Now, I know there's been a lot of conversation about our rainy day reserve fund, so let me just give you a couple words about that, all right? While not legally mandated, industry best practices urge nonprofits to maintain reserves at a minimum of about 6 months operating costs, and ideally increase that to up to 2 years of operating expenses. That's about where we are right now. We have about 2 years of operating expenses. These reserves provide financial security to address unknown challenges or hardships. And I would ask you to note that currently most nonprofits are reporting a downturn in donations. There's also valid uses of a reserve fund, like a matching funds challenge, that if someone donates $300, it will be matched. We have the financial resources to do that. And we're talking about that kind of a program, assuming that we receive donations this year, that we would maybe be able to use our reserve fund that way. Before I leave the matter of money, may I reiterate that for the Friends nonprofit status, it is basically a 6% cash bonus for RA to make purchases through the Friends. They can't do everything that way, but they can do a lot of things that way. We make a concerted effort to use our tax ID. It's on our letterhead. It's on our webpage. It's part of my signature for emails. So if it weren't so many numbers, I'd probably even try and use it as a vanity plate for my car. Our tax ID is 54196359.7. A lot of numbers, but they're really worth it. One final thought about the Friends' progress. It's incremental now. But as Confucius reminds us, it doesn't matter how slowly you go, as long as you go and you don't stop. Well, be assured we're not stopping. You can count on that. There are 2 new board members on the horizon. By the way, since I took office 2 years ago, we've had 5 new board members. That's unusual. And that's really good news. And here's the reason why. Because many hands make light work. And we're going to have some heavy lifting to do going forward. You may know, I have a 10-year-old blind Cocker Spaniel. She hasn't always been blind. She has a degenerative disease, and she doesn't have any optic nerves. When she was a puppy, she was sighted. And as she's matured, her vision has dimmed until she finally has no sight at all. That dog may walk into a wall, use barking for echolocation. She may have to sniff out her food, but she perseveres, and she is largely successful. Why? Because like Confucius and like the Friends, she does not stop. She continues to move forward. Hope the RA board and the RA staff will continue to help us move forward and to recognize our efforts and successes. I know it's been a long evening. It's going to be even longer, but I do thank you for listening to me. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. I just have one quick question. When is your draft budget going to come out?
Well, it's going to have to come out pretty soon, I have to tell you. I think we approve it in December, so it's absolutely going to have to be draft by November.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to say thank you. Actually, the one question I had, you already answered, so thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Thank you. It took 3 times to get here, but I am tickled that I got to sit in on all the rest of these things. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item G, it's the Lakes Equity Working Group. I just want to recognize every volunteer that has worked on this, and those who are present and those who are online. So thank you so much. Erwin, are you speaking? Are you doing an intro, or are they taking it over?
I would just like to make a very introductory remark, and then they will speak. In the last board meeting, the board decided that it would like to have a view of where the Lakes Equity Working Group was in terms of the production of its work. And upon receiving that information, the members of the group got together and decided that they would perform extraordinary work. And they did, in fact, spend several days, well past midnight, working on the documents. And you have the final product before you this evening. And I think it is really a remarkable piece of work and something to be proud of. And so I congratulate the members of the group, and I leave the floor to them.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dr. Nyara Zolongineka. I am chair of the Lakes Equity Working Group, or LUG, and I'm joined here by Vice Chair Sarika Sridhar. We're here tonight to very proudly present to you the final report of the LUG that was submitted in August 2025. Next slide, please. Our presentation will cover the background of the LUG and our charge, our goals, objectives, and vision, a summary of our data-driven findings, policy analysis and community engagement, and finally, recommendations for equitable lake access moving forward.
Do you mind, and I know this is going to sound so rude, but because we started late, and I do want to get out of here by 10:30, and some of us have read this, can you go back to the agenda? Could you just start on your second bullet, the fiscal summary findings, and skip bullet 1 and 2?
You mean the final report?
Yeah, can we
Okay.
just skip ahead to that?
That is
I'm
all
just
right.
trying to make sure every poor soul that's waiting here can get home at a recent time.
Excellent. We do expand in great detail in the very long report that we submitted. Just wanted to have a quick shout out for all the members of the LUG who are here today, who've taken time this month for the last year and a half. We have here Cam Adams. We have Doug, who's not actually present, Dr. Lee DeCola, Sky Jewel, David, and Joe Steiner. Okay, so we're going to skip to the good stuff. So next slide, please. Yes, we'll go into the findings. So of note, these insights do not represent all the findings. They represent highlights. So we encourage everybody who is hearing this to go in and read the report. It is lengthy, but it does have valuable, detailed information. Our findings are grounded in data, and they reveal clear patterns. Whether walking, boating, stand-up paddleboarding, festival shopping, or just sightseeing, Reston's lakes are very popular. We also documented systematic gaps. Our analyses found strong demand for inclusive programs, clear communication, and safe and welcoming lake environments. However, residents with disabilities, renters, and low-income households face unequal access and significant barriers to utilizing the lakes. We observed limited ADA-compliant infrastructure at lakefronts and on trails adjacent to the lakes. A common pain point was the inconsistent signage at and surrounding lakes. Reston residents voiced concern about the lack of clarity between general and private boundaries. In addition, we found systematic gaps in RA's policies, programming, communication, and data practices that exacerbate this inequality. For example, RA's provision of cost-prohibitive or English-only programming. Next slide, please. The LUG used a multi-pronged data-driven approach. This slide shows secondary analysis of RA's existing data in the RA 2023 Community Survey. This evidence-based methodology was used to give us both quantitative trends and lived experiences of the residents. So I will go through what we found. In the first chart, you will note that on the x-axis, we've got the type of household, single-family, apartment, condo, or townhome. And on the y-axis, we've got the percentage of times that households visited the lakes within the last year, as reported in the RA Community Survey. You'll also note that we used exactly the same sampling, categorization, and everything that came with the first survey. We also consulted with the people who administered the first survey so that we would maintain fidelity to what they shared with RA in the prior year. What we found when we looked at household type was that apartment dwelling household reported visiting the lakes with least frequency. That is, they were least likely to report visiting at least once a week or once a month. Also, rather surprising, we found that 66% of households in the lowest income stratum, which is under $25,000 households, reported never visiting the lakes within the past year. Next slide, please. Also, from that RA Community Survey, we looked at income and the importance of investment in lakefront kayak storage. Not surprisingly, the lowest income stratum for 25,000 to 4999 households were more likely to report that it was important or most important for there to be kayak storage or kayak investment at the lakefronts. Also noted was the differences in household opinions about kayak storage. We found that apartment and condo dwellers were more likely to rank it as most important or important. Next slide, please. In addition to analyzing secondary data from what RA already had, we ventured to go and get a peek at what our community actually felt. We gave up and we developed and then administered what we call the barriers survey, which was responded to by 367 respondents. What we found was that there were clear patterns in the barriers that were reported by residents of Reston as to why they did not go to the lakes. Awareness was, hold on, let me get this Awareness, many residents don't know where public access points are, or the rules regarding use of the public access points. We also found that people reported that there was physical access barriers, such as inadequate docks, steep trails, or missing ADA features. Perceptions of the lakes also served to be a barrier. Residents reported hostile signage and unwelcoming attitudes. Cost was another barrier. Rentals and camps were viewed as unaffordable by many households. Next slide, please. Again, continuing with that data-driven aspect of it, we analyzed RA's boat registration data. We classified households into 3 tiers based on whether they had moored access or general access. As of July 8, 2025, there were a total of 1,869 boats registered to 1,435 households in Reston. Most of these households had general access registration only, 65% actually, 928 out of those households. We developed an index based on the closest general lake access point to each household, with each household only being assigned to 1 lake. Our access index analysis served as a proxy to understand how access varies by user type and geographic location. Higher values implied closer access, and lower values implied further distance from access. Findings from this analysis are shown on this table. Lake Anne scored the highest with 0.67. Lake Audubon, a moderate access with 0.59, and the lowest was Lake Thoreau and Lake Newport with 0.51 and 0.49 respectively. This means that many households live more than a mile away from a designated public launch. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned earlier, these are not the only things that we found. The report is rather long. We encourage everyone to read the report for more details, including quotes from the community engagement meetings that we held, and very detailed access areas assessments, including hundreds of pictures and charts with markings with specific recommendations by site, including specific to lakes. Next, I'll get into the actual recommendations. Our recommendations cover 8 domains: infrastructure, signage, programs, communication, policy, transit, equity strategies, and data and accountability. This first slide covers infrastructure. Given the lack of ADA-compliant facilities and accommodations in and around our lakes, we recommend ADA-compliant docks and trails and ramp access at Lake Anne Plaza and adaptive kayak rentals. We did try to be very specific in our recommendations, and kudos to the team, because to get this level of specificity, it arose from the fact that we actually walked, and did site visits at all the lakes. All of us did a walk around every single lake, and Joe went further and above and beyond and was the one who really went and tracked all the ADA items and all the aspects of the access points. We had the support of Colin, who's here today, to help us and guide us. And that is kind of indicative of everything that we did. Everything we did was kind of informed by experts in the field, and with their guidance, we're able to identify what we should be watching out for. Of note, we also recommend improving trails and entryways. Something that came out pretty frequently was how steep the entryway was, or the area surrounding the trails. And then also increase accessible amenities. Again, adaptive kayak storage, rental infrastructure, adding benches, railings, and handrails, and stand-up paddleboard ladders. Lake Anne, for example, where somebody who, if you've ever tried to pull out your paddleboard out of Lake Anne, it is not necessarily suited to that. So simple items like that could help in terms of infrastructure and physical access improvements. Next slide, please. As previously stated, a very common pain point was the ambiguity that exists with our signs in Reston. Therefore, we recommend standardized, welcoming, and multilingual signage. We recommend that RA adopt rules for the use of consistent, friendly, and welcoming signage across all lakes. We also recommend that those signs replace punitive messages such as no trespassing, with positive alternatives such as end of public property, do not enter. We also recommend that there be improvements to navigation and maps, including markings on the trails, updated pillar maps, and visible directional signs at key points. For example, at shopping centers, at trailheads, those types of things. One of the things that we were able to do with the data that was already existing was develop GIS apps. We complemented this with what we put into an app. We used ArcGIS 123, and we attended most of the events on the lakefront and were able to upload information such as attendance, what we saw there, and evaluate the events. So we recommend that RA consider including GIS. Next slide, please. Our third set of recommendations involve programmatic and community engagement enhancements. And I'm going to pause here and just make a mention that the RA community survey had exactly one Spanish or non-English submission. That is a glaring, very glaring pain point. It shows that there's a lack of outreach to that group. So we'd like to really implore RA to consider inclusive programming, including sliding scale fees, expanded cultural, educational, and recreational events. Something that came up many times was how people are afraid of actually getting into the activities. So items like open houses for stand-up paddleboarding or ecology walks could just increase the community's knowledge of what is there and what they can take advantage of. We also would like to recommend recreation expansion by the increase of rental hours and family-friendly options. A family of 4 renting kayaks currently would pay $20 each for 1 hour. That is $100 for a Reston family to go and rent kayaks for 1 hour in Lake Anne. That is cost prohibitive. We also like to pilot boat sharing and community kayak programs in clusters with limited access. And again, we recommend that RA consider community engagement and expanding that, hosting listening sessions, inclusive festivals and open house events, and also partnering with schools and cultural groups for programming and education. Next slide, please. Our next set of recommendations surrounds communication. We are recommending that RA implement a centralized lakes portal with maps, ADA info, and translations. We also recommend that RA expands standard communication to renters. I was a renter myself when I first came to Reston, and I had no idea what was here. I did get a huge packet when I bought a house, though. So we would like to recommend that RA set standards for information sharing on leases and develop standardized guides for lake use for renters that are similar to that is shared to homeowners. We also recommend an improvement in transparency and clarity by publishing clear multilingual maps that show access points, amenities, and rules. And then also would like to recommend that RA promote underutilized amenities. Assets like the lake house, pavilion rentals, accessible programs can be promoted via social media and RA publications. Next slide, please. One of the big parts of what we did was to do a policy analysis. The 2 lawyers on the LUG spent hours poring over documentations, guidelines, deeds, anything you can possibly think of. Our first recommendation is that RA clarify public access and use rules. That includes reviewing and simplifying rules for docks, storage, and lake use, and publish maps that delineate public, private, and cluster areas. As previously mentioned, the signs sometimes are very confusing and not very welcoming. We also recommend an audit and reform of ball pool management. Ball pools are benefited.
Off-lake property owners.
There we go. There we go. But there are docks that are that allow deeded access for certain clusters or certain households. We recommend that RA create a database of Walpole managed facilities with maintenance standards and public use guidelines, and consider reopening abandoned or underutilized sites for general RA use. I'd like to pause here and let you know that we did have a couple of community members attend our meetings. One that was memorable was a gentleman who came and said, our Walpole is in disrepair. It's in disrepair, it hasn't been taken care of, and it would be great if RA took it over and it was usable by other people. I did not know what a Walpole was until I joined this group. And that's indicative of just the level of transparency that exists out there. We also recommend that RA update governance documents and revise and review common area rules and regulations 1 and 2, which refer specifically to the lakes. Next slide, please. We recognize that when we make transit recommendations, the transit is not necessarily something that is within the purview of RA. However, RA can enhance transit wayfinding by placing directional signs from bus stops to lake entry points and vice versa, and develop marked pedestrian routes from key stops, for example, North Shore Drive to Lake End Plaza. We also would like to request that RA publish accessible transit information when we go onto the RA website and we're looking for how to get there. Not everybody's driving. So it would be great to be able to see those links so that people can get up-to-date and on-time information as needed.
I am going to have to interject just for ruthless prioritization reasons. We allotted 15 minutes to this discussion item. We're way over, and because of our own fault, we started the meeting late. Can you start wrapping it up?
Will do. Next slide, please. We also recommend equity-focused strategies. As I discussed, there are many households and many areas that are within a great distance from general access areas. Having more access areas that allow access for those people would be very useful. Multilingual promotion of scheduling would also be good, and culturally inclusive planning beyond Lake Anne would also be useful. And finally, data and accountability. Next slide, please. Our research uncovered huge gaps in how RA is collecting data, evaluating it, analyzing it, and sharing it. We'd like to recommend that RA integrates data collection and measurement into RA's processes, including program evaluation and planning and financial prioritization and reporting. We also recommend standardizing data on program participation, access point usage, and geographic equity. Of note, we did look at RA data. That was a big part of our analysis, which means the data does exist. It was already there. So in future, we'd recommend that not only would an equitable lens be added to these surveys, which are already occurring, and in these data collection mechanisms, but then also that analysis occurs on that level with an equitable lens. And then finally, next slide, please. We recommend long-term tracking and measurement. What we showed here today is just a glimpse into what has been a long-standing blind spot in Reston. The only way to keep improving it and to keep telling the story and see whether we are being true to the founding members of Reston, Robert E. Simon, is that we count and we measure. Because without counting and measurement, there is no story. So we recommend long-term tracking and measurement, including maintaining a public-facing equity dashboard, conducting a biennial community access survey. Again, it could be incorporated into the existing RA community survey. Implementation of signage and facilities audits, because signs come up a lot, and report of annual progress to the board. Next slide. And with that, we've given you the report. We're going to hand it over. The goal in handing it over is that RA staff will take it over, because they're the ones who are on the ground and most suited to finding exactly where effort is available and where improvements can be made. There are numerous other steps on here, but the members of the League wanted you to know that we are available to consult. We've become experts in these 2 years, and we are available, and we are still residents of Reston, and we all love it here, and would be very happy to support in the implementation or the decision-making or anything in any capacity that you'd want us to be. Last slide, please. Next slide, please. And finally, we didn't do this alone. We did burn the midnight oil, but then we had a lot of community help, and that is the strength of this report. Of note, Erwin, Amalia, and Marcus, who were founding members but left the Loog halfway through. Izzy, who was our liaison for a bit there. Georgia, who's now not able to support us. And a big shout out to Ben, who was our staff liaison. He's also the watershed manager. And everybody else who's helped, Cara, Mike, everyone who's helped. This was a group effort, and we're very proud of what we've done. And we would like to give a very big final shout out to all the people who came and gave us comments, who put their opinions on the line, responded to our surveys, came and talked and debated us. It is something that we are very proud of, and it is indicative of what Reston brings. And with that, I will open up for questions.
Thank you so much. I've said this from the beginning, you guys have done immense work, and thank you so much for gathering all of this for us. Do we have any questions from anybody? Margaret, yes.
I have one statement, or combination of statements. First and foremost, thank you all. It was very detailed, very thorough, certainly a lot of information there to digest and comprehend and look at and work on. I am pleased to say that a number of the things you guys have suggested we have actually talked about recently, so I'm hoping that at a bare minimum we might be able to move forward on a couple of things this budget season, which would be wonderful. And so just thank you. Your work will not go unappreciated, nor will it be swept under the rug. Thank you.
Any other peers who'd like to?
Similar to Margaret, just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for the work. Clear and evident, data-driven approach, some clear findings here, and definitely some things on a personal level I agree wholeheartedly with, and will work from my seat to help Reston integrate into our plans going forward. That said, I would support this board accepting these findings and working with staff to integrate them. That's not a motion. I think we'll get to that in a moment, but encourage everybody to consider that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Erwin?
I have some motions.
Does anybody have any other questions for the chair of the Loog before we go into motions? Seeing, oh, Jennifer might be. No? Okay, sorry. Okay, Erwin?
Yep, thank you. I would like to move that the board accept the final report of the Lakes Equity Working Group for consideration.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor, say aye.
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 1, 2, 4. Those opposed? And those abstaining? So that is 5-1-1. The motion carries.
I think Jalal and Jennifer both opposed.
No, Jalal abstained,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
right?
John voted in favor.
Well, and we went through discussion really fast, so I didn't get to raise my hand. But yes, I voted against, but I had if the chair will allow, I had a reason.
Yeah, go for it.
I voted against the motion because I really believe that in order for the Lake Equity Working Group results to move forward, that the board needs to have skin in the game. And if we just pass this to staff, it is a lot of data and information to go through. And I fear that they will return with such a wide breadth of what we could do that the board really should be involved in that process. And so I was hoping to see a subgroup of the board involved with staff. And as The president, the Lake Equity Working Group has also offered their services. So to see staff go kind of on their own, I think is not the best path forward.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, Talal?
Yeah, I also wanted to jump in, but Jennifer just described it, and I support what Jennifer described wholeheartedly. My concern right now is not the recommendations, it's just the totality of the recommendations and the impact that it will have on resources, on staff going out there, and the ambiguities that might exist in terms of going back and forth and having questions. And I think for the sake of efficiency, it would be very worthwhile to get a subgroup going so that any detailed questions can be answered before the staff is assigned to go look at these things and come back, tell us how you can implement them, what it takes to implement them. And we all know, and I've talked to Director Flashman about this as well, there are things like resources, impact, cost, legal issues, any of those things, those really need to be understood and put against the priorities that the entire board is looking at for the entire budget season and so on. So having said all of that, I fully support having a subgroup as a way of really moving this forward. So I would support that 100%.
Yeah.
I have a second motion.
You don't want to respond to that? Okay.
This will respond to it.
Oh, okay, go for it. I'm just the moderator.
I move to direct staff to undertake a review of the report and prepare a plan for its implementation, including consideration of the elements necessary for such implementation, such as, but not limited to, staff time, costs, timeline, and integration into the operations of RA for presentation to the board by no later than February 2026.
Second.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Please.
First, approval of this motion does not imply that you are approving any or all of the suggestions made by the working group. It is an accommodation to the staff to take a look at what is meant by the various elements in the report and understanding or giving an understanding to us of those various elements so that the board is in a position to make a judgment, an informed judgment based on facts and based on a projection of a timeline that would take us through probably several years in coordination with other factors that are facing the judgment of the board at that time throughout those years. It is, I think, appropriate that this be done, and I have spoken with staff about this, and I would ask them to share their thoughts on the matter, because I understand that they can produce this report within the time frame suggested and provide the basic information included in the motion without any great difficulty. So I ask Mac if he can speak to the matter.
Sure, I can speak to that. Generally, we are very used to putting together implementation plans. So for example, we had the community survey, which had mountains and mountains and mountains of data, and we put together an implementation plan that indicated certain things were accomplishable in the short term, certain things would need to be over the longer term, resource availability, those sorts of things. So we've done the same effort for the strategic plan, which is over a 3-year time horizon that has key objectives that then flow into annual work plans and so forth. So the concept is something that we do on an ongoing basis when the board asks us to look into policy items and how they can be implemented and come back with what the impacts to the association and or the finances, might look like. And frankly, some things may not be accomplishable, having not dug through them all yet completely. So Erwin asked us about February. A lot of these things may overlap with other operational items that we're doing, so I asked Peter maybe to weigh in on the February date. But generally speaking, this is something that's usually assigned to staff, and then we come back, and then you decide what you want to do.
So we don't have any issues with the February date. We've read through the report. I would applaud the committee for authoring a report that I think is relatively actionable. So I've had an opportunity to speak with my team. Tony has volunteered to be very involved, so I think generally we're okay with the February date.
Thank you.
Madam Vice President,
Yes, John.
speaking in support of the motion, this committee came to the board and asked for an extension that the board declined to give them. And I have no doubt that had this board given this working group the extension they sought, that more information regarding their recommendations and the implementation of their recommendations could have been incorporated into a final report. In the infinite wisdom of the board, that opportunity was denied to them and to us. Given the fact that we're basically told them to wrap it up this month, this is the only action they could take. If we're concerned that there be follow-on by people other than the staff, perhaps we need now to agree to give them the extension they sought a couple of months ago. But absent a motion to that effect, and I won't make it, it seems to me that this is the action that we have to take if we are to give credence to the work that this group has done. Clearly, we have a very diverse population, and the number of people who get to enjoy our lakes is a fraction of our membership. And that's not consistent with the vision and the goals and the mission that Mr. Simon set out for us 60 some odd years ago. Clearly, this group has demonstrated to us that we're falling short of that mission. And if someone doesn't like this motion, I would look forward to a different motion that enables us to fulfill that mission. Thank you.
Any others? Can I handle my gavel so I can speak for 60 seconds? I'm sorry? Oh, well, I handle my gavel away, so you have to recognize Jennifer or me. But
You wanted to speak, so go
Yeah.
ahead.
I would say from a matter of just business practice, the operational things that are in this report that are capital improvements, staff should have the authority to help decide what moves forward, what makes sense, what we can and cannot do. However, the slide on policy recommendations, I would not punt that to staff. And so I think that lives with the board because we're a governance board. So I would strike that from this motion, and if that is not amended, I will vote against the motion. Take back my gavel. Jennifer.
I would like to offer a substitute motion. I move to direct the staff and a volunteer group of no more than 4 members of the board to be confirmed by our board president, and up to 2 volunteers from the Lake Equity Working Group to review the Lake Equity Working Group report, and by no later than February 2026, provide recommendations that 1, identify which items RA should undertake and report on their costs, compliance, and legal needs and feasibility, date for a budget inclusion. 2, identify items that fall outside of RA scope, and 3, highlight items that require board and or DRB discussions as policy matters before implementation recommendations are to be issued. I have also included that motion in the chat for anyone who wants to review it or read it or have Brittany bring it up. And I would ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a substitute motion at the table. Any discussion?
Yes.
Erwin.
I am opposed to that, and the reason is multifold. First, board members don't have the detail necessary to be able to make judgments without the input of staff. There is, it makes sense to wait for the staff to produce the basic information so that we all have that and we can make judgments about each and every one of the suggestions with the proper information as a basis. Staff has said that they can do that, and they are not making judgments about what should be done or what should not be done. That will be done by the board once that information is available. The board members on your proposed committee don't have anything really to add. And so I'm not sure what would happen if they are on there. They're not going to provide information, and they will slow the process down. I am opposed to this, and I find that it is unnecessary, and I will vote against it.
Jennifer?
I just want to be clear that part of my motion is directing staff. So staff does hold the gavel, along with the support of both the Lake Equity Working Group members and the board. In the past, we have done this multiple times for other issues, like our deed subcommittee, and we have found that that has been a successful route to moving reports like this or projects that the board needs to undertake forward, because it has been reviewed by board members and staff can ask questions and other board members can call upon their colleagues to get some feedback. So I really think that the motion that Mr. Flash, or Board Member Flashman, threw lacked some specificity of what we were requesting of staff. And I believe that this motion provides more of that specificity of what the end product looks like and something that the board can take action on when it comes back to us. So I would hope that my fellow colleagues would support the motion. Thank you.
I'd like to respond as a second opportunity.
Yep, go for it.
By inserting the board members on this committee early, you are depriving the full board of an opportunity to make decisions about the final outcome and precluding the board from acting on all of the suggestions. And that is inappropriate. Secondly, while this format has been used on other matters, such as the determination of the long-term contributions to the RRF fund, that is a very narrow-focused and limited activity on which the grouping formulated a proposal for the board to deal with. This is a very different set of circumstances, a much more complicated one, which depends upon a lot of information to be produced by staff. And it is only fair that the full board have an opportunity to look at all of this rather than have a small group of 3-4 members of the board participate in eliminating things from consideration. And for that reason, I object strongly.
Okay, any other final thoughts? If not,
Madam President?
yes, John.
I join my friend, Mr. Flashman, in opposing this motion. We're talking about trying to get 4 board members together in the next 6 months during the holiday season and to come forward with recommendations. We had a body that was prepared to do that work, and we cut them off. I do not believe that we could get a report back from a working group such as the one described in this motion by February, and we will result in further delay in implementation of the changes that the Lake Equity Working Group is seeking. and I don't see a reason for further delay. I think these recommendations can come back to the board in February with the staff giving us some advice, and we can, as a full board, act on those recommendations. So I will be opposing the motion.
Okay, I think we've had lengthy debate. Can, those in favor, say aye. 3. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3,
Nay.
4. Okay. 3, 4, 0.
We're voting on the substitute motion.
So now we return to the regular motion. I don't think we need more debate on that, so let's vote on it. Those in favor?
Aye.
3. Okay, those opposed? Those abstaining? Motion carries. And with that, I think we might welcome a 10-minute break, if that's allowed. So thank you so much, Lake Equity Working Group, and we'll be returning in 10 minutes. Okay, you want to go home?
All right?
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Good evening. As a way of introduction, we're going to be going through the draft 2026-27 budget tonight. There was a question during the break, I'm not sure if everyone on the Zoom call could hear, about how we're planning on going through the information tonight. Just to put everybody's mind at ease, we are not going to go through every single slide and speak to every single slide. Rather, I would like to spend some time talking about what we see as the best way to approach budgetary decisions going into setting the assessment for 2026. I'd like to talk about the main drivers of the budget, both on the operating side and the capital side, and talk about the process. So one of the things that I'm most proud of, and something that I challenged our chief financial officer when he first started about 16 months ago, was to get our hands around not just our financial investments and things that CFO will do with the fiscal committee and other financial things, but getting a good handle on the expenditures. Most of our revenue stream, I think as everyone knows, is very constant. It's assessment-based. It is not generally based on non-assessment revenue. As a result, the revenue stream is fairly stable, and so the big fluctuator is how well, and more importantly, how predictable are our expenditures. And so last year, we ran to within 0.5% of the overall budget. We are forecasting for a similar amount or even closer. So that means in the last 2 annual years, we are getting very, very good at forecasting and predicting expenditures for the service model that we are aiming for. So in putting together this year's budget, we are making some assumptions around assuming the same level of service, and that's a big deal because we talked a lot last year about expanding pool hours, and there's some variables that went into that. So the first budget assumes those sorts of things. The capital budget, we had a working group, and most importantly, we spent time talking about the funding model. So when we get to that, we'll talk about the need to set potentially a different way of thinking about the funding model, but most importantly, the concept of setting a constant assessment will come back so that we don't have fluctuation. And the biggest driver of the fluctuation in the assessment, assuming we're keeping a constant operating model, is going to be capital going forward. So speaking to the process, tonight is really a time for us to introduce the budget and make sure we have any questions and answers. And these can obviously come as follow-up questions to us. The Board of Directors is going to have 3 separate input sessions on the first draft budget before making decisions to direct how we create the second draft budget. The first will occur at the public hearing on September 11th. It's important to remind everybody a public hearing, because this comes up from time to time, is really just a listening session. It's not an iterative back and forth session. For the public, that meeting starts a half hour earlier than the regular board meeting, so it'll start at 6 p.m. The second input session for the board will be the Fiscal Committee, which occurs on September 17th. They will be reviewing this draft budget that you have in your packet and making a formal recommendation on it for consideration on the 25th. Now, on the 25th, when the board gives us direction, the board will also have some additional inputs that we don't have yet. So as we close out the summer season, we'll be looking at usage by pool, how the extra hours fared, and those sorts of things that become major drivers in the people costs and the operating costs. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to have Ed speak to the operating side of the budget. We assigned some inflationary numbers, and the people costs and those sorts of things. And then Pete will speak to the capital costs and his recommendations, as well as the capital working group recommendations. And then special shout out to all of our department heads that are here as well, with the exception of Laura Kowalski, who sadly fell ill. So Peter will be able to handle any aquatics or rec questions if you have any. So we will speak probably for no more than like 10 more minutes, and then we'll be having Q&A as we go through it. And we'll try to keep it at a high level.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. As Max said, it's going to be a brief intro. I'm going to talk operating and Pete will talk capital. Our thought was kind of trying to let me get through the operating slides, and then I'll take questions on those, and then we'll do capital and take questions on those. Brief intro. Capital was a big focus, the capital working group, and how we're going to fund that in the future. Inflation, aquatics, operating expenses, and member suggestions were other factors. This is a biennial budget, so 26 and 27 kind of mentioned it in some other places, but a lot of what you're seeing is only 26. But I did look back to 2 years ago. I wasn't here, but I kind of was looking for the format, like how do you show the second year? And what I saw is it really wasn't included in draft 1 or draft 2. It showed up in draft 3 and the final. So we'll follow that again this year. But you probably saw I have a 5-year forecast that we'll talk to briefly as well. And over on the right there, yeah, the drivers, inflation, operating expenses, aquatics, and capital, and we'll talk to those a little bit more. Next slide, yeah, Mac sort of already went through the highlights of the schedule. Just a reminder, we released the budget almost a month earlier this year, August 22nd. And the big hope with that is that in the late September meeting, we'll get, some solid feedback from the board. We're going to try and help through that process, including providing options and data like pool hours so that we can, decide what to do in that late September meeting.
What questions are open to?
Hold on for a minute. Yeah, hold them unless it's a burning question. All right, and then we have the long form budget shown on 3 slides just so it fits, but I'm really not going to go through that in detail. But it's looking back at the 24 budget, 25 forecast and budget, and kind of comparisons in this draft 1 budget compared to the 25 forecast and compared to the 25 budget. First looking at the revenues by cost center, then looking at the expenses by cost center. And, it's not shown in the PowerPoint, but I'm sure you've seen in the packet that we also have the by function costs and all of the cost center detail. There's over 1,000 lines in the budget. So that's all there for you to peruse at your leisure. Feel free to ask me questions, via email later on if you'd like. We could take some questions tonight as well, but, some of those details we'll talk to in the fiscal committee meeting on September 17th as well. And, happy to take questions via email as well. And then we're on to the slide there. Well, Pete, I was going to mention just one thing on the kind of final number. I mean, just to, put it out there, I mean, we're at 923 right now, $75 increase or 8.8%. And, it's largely driven by about 1/3 the increase in capital, about 1/3 inflationary factors, and 1/3, a variety of other smaller things, some of which we'll talk on some of the other slides. And on the capital side, as it shows here in the 26 budget, we have assumed $600K worth of offset from kind of unassigned capital, and talk about that in a later slide. But it still has the capital contribution increasing from about 265 this year to 315 next year, so about a $500K increase. Now you can go ahead. And the 5-year forecast, and kind of as I mentioned, looking back at how this was done 2 years ago, we'll show kind of the cost center details when we get to draft 3 and the final budget. But to give you kind of a first look at 27 here, as well as going out 5 years, what we did is, based on the capital group, capital working group, which Pete will talk to more later, but we're basically looking to ramp up to a $3.75 million contribution to capital each year. But we're ramping that up over the next 3 years to try and make it a little bit more palatable. So we have the offsets and kind of looking at 315 for next year, 35 in 27, and getting to 375 in 28. We've also assumed a 3% increase to non-assessment revenues each year, starting 27 through 30, and a 4% increase to the operating expenses. So that's what kind of drives the increases, year over year going out to 2030 there. That's our estimate. We do have some offsets, as I mentioned, in 26 as well as 27 from unassigned capital funds, and we've also assumed offsets in 29 and 30 from stream and wetland funds for some of the dredging projects those years. Go ahead. We have a slide on kind of the history of the assessment over on the right. Just a note, and we've shown this slide before, but from 2016 to 2025, the average increase to the assessment was 2.8%. So, not too high, kind of barely keeping up with inflation. And the full-time staffing, we've actually decreased 2 FTEs from what we had in 2020. We had 103 full-time FTEs, and we're down to 101 now in 2025 in the budget. Over on the left, it kind of shows by cost center how many people we have in the 25 budget. We have 98 actual people right now on the ground. Out of our 101 in the budget, we have 3 vacancies. And then, as you've probably seen in some of the materials, we are proposing 2 part-time to full-time conversions that are fully budget neutral because we're kind of eliminating a part-time position and decreasing some seasonal dollars to fund a full-time position. And we have a couple slides on that. So we are proposing to increase to 103 FTEs for next year. Inflation, that is a driver of, about a third of the increase. We kind of started with a baseline of a 2% inflation factor on everything because, I was hoping to keep the overall inflation, maybe 3%-ish, but I knew that some things were going to be higher. Like insurance, we have in at 8%. We know 8% is correct for the first half of the year because based on this year's renewal that goes, July through June, we kind of know that that's up 8%. So we're kind of estimating that it'll be similar for the following year. We are talking to other insurance brokers and obviously are going to try and do better, but given what we hear and just natural disasters and the insurance market is very challenged these days. So I don't know that it would be a valid assumption to assume we're going to do much better than that, but we have 8% in at this point. We also have 6% in for benefits. We expect it'll be similar to last year where we're really making an educated guess for the draft 1 budget. But by the time we get to the draft 2 budget, hopefully we'll have an estimate from our broker for benefits. That's kind of how it came out last year. And by the time we get to the draft 3/final budget, we should have the benefits pretty much locked in or fully locked in at that point. So it's kind of how we've done that. And we kind of set 2% for everything else. But we have worked with the department directors and, in some cases where they know that mowing on dams, for example. I mean, we have some things that they know are increasing at a greater percentage. So we have factored that in on a case-by-case basis, but kind of the baseline that we started with was 2%. Member suggestions drives, a few things. I mean, it's not a huge number. For the operating budget, it's a total of about $85K, which, it's $4 on the assessment. And the biggest chunk of that is the $50K for the last part of the condition assessment, which, I think we've been real happy with what we've gotten out of that in the past and, kind of getting an ROI since we know that, maybe we don't need to replace pools so soon and things like that. So that's the biggest chunk of that, but also kayak storage, trash bins, picnic tables, and a ladder. And then down on the capital side, uplands water pressure, that actually came from last year's member suggestions that kind of was put in the capital plan for 26. And then we got bottle filling stations, archiving, and the Upper Lakes Drive trail relocation related to the crosswalk. That totals $181K or about $8. And there were a couple other member suggestions that were moved forward. And just to mention, I think it was in our memo as well, those are in the capital plan as well. But for 27, that was the pier/dock at Lake Ann and the sidewalk at one pool. I don't know what everybody needs. Yeah, so those are included as well, but they're in 27. All right. We are going to look at pool hours closely at the end of September, so I won't talk about that much. Just to mention in draft 1, there is one thing in there already. Because of the Fairfax County pool schedule, we've already baked in a week more of time. We can talk about whether we keep that in later, but because of the schools being out, we have added 1 week, and there's some additional lifeguard training and onboarding. So those are in the draft 1 budget, but we'll be talking in late September about what you may or may not want to include in draft 2. And then, we have some maintenance funding. Some of it was added to the 25 budget, have added a little more into the 26 budget, and, have had some successes where, we had some issues that came up in 25 and we're able to react quickly to those because of some of these additional dollars in the budget. Electric motors in particular is kind of up in the 26 budget based on some projected needs. But I think we'll keep going. And there are 2 proposed seasonal and part-time conversions to a full-time. And really, these are budget neutral. So, we can talk about not doing them, but it won't affect the budget if we didn't, because really we're knocking out a part-timer and some seasonal dollars to fund a full-time, one in member services for being a rentals coordinator year-round, and one in camps because of licensing needs and, other just as camps have grown, that has proven to be a need. And we think the team believes that having a full-time person year-round will be better to staff and easier to staff than trying to kludge it together from, a variety of seasonals and part-timers.
Thank you for that section. I think, Sean, you wanted to jump
And
in?
yes, and that is the end of the operating section, so happy to take questions.
Couple of points. One is inflation's always tough. When you were talking about, now, is benefits being driven more by medical costs?
Primarily, it's medical.
Medical
I mean,
costs.
there's small dental and vision, but medical's the bulk of it by
And
far.
I'm trying to, I can't remember, you said you're probably gonna get a good handle on that.
By draft 2.
Yeah.
And we should know it by draft 3, because basically we need to have it locked in, because then we have benefits fairs and
Right,
people
right.
are selecting for next year. But at this point, we don't, I've asked Ashley, our HR manager, and, at this point, we really don't know, so it's kind of an educated guesstimate.
Yeah,
but
no, but
But we'll know next month.
everything I've read said medical is going crazy, so 6% seems reasonable. The 2%, I mean, I know you've gone through it. I'll be honest, that seems to me to be a little low, but I'm basing it on your judgment with the people, but it just seems on an overall basis seems low. I mean, I guess draft 2 will give you a better feel, but I imagine it's pretty good right now, based on what folks have told you, your staff has told you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that was kind of our original baseline, but we did get input from the department directors, and they did bump it up in a few specific cases, but, not a whole lot, I mean, in some cases, but.
Yeah, and I noted, well, typical Fairfax County, nothing closer to God on earth than a Fairfax County bureaucrat and their licensing. So what is it that, what are they I mean, pedophiles and all that sort of stuff, is that the kind of things that they're looking for?
So in our summer camp program, some of the camps have the age of kids that actually qualify the program to be more of a daycare program than it is a summer camp program. So the licensing requirements have become more stringent. So the last 2 years have been particularly difficult for us. We don't, as an association, have a multitude of indoor facilities, and the requirements of a lot of these programs are that you have indoor facilities to offset rainy days and restrooms and all the things that come with that. And not to scare anyone, we haven't come anywhere near this, but not meeting a licensing requirement and running a camp is actually a Class 4 felony. So if we are not on top of what we're supposed to be on top of, the association could be at risk. So I understand your point about bureaucracy, but this is really us wanting to tighten up our operation.
Look, they run it.
Yep.
I mean, I like what they're doing, but the bottom line is that whatever, if they tell you to have pink toilet paper, you're gonna have pink toilet paper.
Exactly right.
So, is the burden on the organization, have you built in the costs associated with that in this draft 1 budget?
So the purpose for the reason we took the buckets of seasonal money and part-time money and tried to convert it to a full-time person is to have someone that's singularly focused on this issue. Just because of the lift it's been the last few years, we think we need the assistance.
Trevor?
Oh, yeah. Lisa? And this is fantastic set of slides and presentations, so I really appreciate all the work and effort that went into it, from the 5-year forecast to how you walk us through it. This is fantastic. And so every year when you present things differently, I just have different ways of thinking about the information. And so under the member suggestions, like where we talk about the assessments associated with each of those for the member suggestions for operating and capital, it's so interesting. Okay, so what do you think about this information? Well, what did we contribute last year to it? Like, how does it replace? Like, now I'm like, oh, this is a very interesting, informative way. Should we be targeting a certain amount of the operating expense should be reserved every year to fund the member suggestions? I don't know. Presenting it this way just kind of opens my eyes to, like, how did this impact our budget in the past? How does it impact our budget in the future? How do we think about it? I don't have a recommendation. I just appreciate the data, and it's like, this is fantastic. Maybe we should be targeting something going into member suggestions, because I remember how hard it was to narrow down that list, and we should be thinking about, okay, well, we reserve $5 a year for member suggestions, so what fits in that? Let's spend to it. Anyway, just different ways of thinking about it, because I'm a fan of the association. If we budget it, we should spend it, because it all comes back to the members.
That's it. Thank you. Margaret?
So I will second the concern. I just, with tariffs and various things that are causing rising prices, I am a little concerned at that 2% level. Obviously, you guys know more than I do, so I will trust you, but it does cause me pause.
Sean?
Just a
And then
statement.
Jennifer, sorry. Wait, you should.
All right. Kudos. You guys did an outstanding job. I mean, all these questions are like nitpicking, but on an overall basis, I want to say to you, for a draft one, this is amazingly good. So thank you. And, my questions are more, pinpointing, how many fleas are on the back of a dog. I mean, nothing significant. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen? Oh, wait, Jennifer had her hand, then Matt, then, well, you want to say something?
I'll wait.
Okay, Jennifer.
If Director Perry could clarify, I was not following about the 2% that gave her pause, and maybe I missed a comment before, but I wasn't able to follow what you were referring to, so that would be helpful if you could help clarify. But my real comment was on the budget slides, starting with the second, third, and fourth slides, where it just has the operating budget. I was wondering if we could have some type of indication or explanation for the drivers of the budget differences. And maybe our CFO can, pick an amount or a percentage and just say, I'm not going to explain every single line, but some type of explanation for a driver of the change from budget year to budget year, I think would be really helpful to mitigate a million questions from board members, and certainly would mitigate many from me.
Okay, I can try and hit a few highlights. In the 2%,
And I would say if you could email it to us,
okay.
that would be awesome. And then we
Gotcha.
could include it, in a future year or future, like maybe during the public hearing, it could be part of that packet. But
Okay.
yeah, if that's helpful. Thank you. No, I didn't mean for you to do it off the top of your head. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I have one more question. Can Margaret respond really quickly? Yeah.
So Director Juszczyk, my pause on the 2% is that a lot of these increases are based on an assumption of a 2% increase in general. And given where we are in general and with tariffs and various things, I'm concerned that we're being very generous in what we're expecting.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You okay, Lisa?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think, what would be great to come out of this meeting, because, we're seeing the budget before we go to fiscal, so it'd be great if the board offered like some direction to fiscal about if there were just some overall like questions or concerns that you wanted us to dig into, because a lot of the fiscal committee, I mean, we have a whole meeting set aside on our next agenda that's going to be budget, where we can dig into a lot of the numbers and ask a lot of questions. But if there was a directional goal, like how does the board feel about the assessment that is presented with the increase for the year, it would be great to hear those opinions from the board before we go into fiscal meeting. Point well taken. I will ask the board to comment on that after Matt jumps in.
Yeah, my only comment is on inflation as well. I think we're going to end the year well north of 2, 2.9 probably, well north of that potentially, just however things play out. I do think, history is instructive. Inflation is a strong driver. I was looking back at the data, 2022, inflation was 8%. We did not inflate the assessment at that rate then. So there's been a number of years between 22 and 25 where the assessment grew at a pace slower than inflation. So I think my point is, I think this assessment is a good framework for us to consider, and it's, if you look 2016 through 2026, and you factor 2.9% inflation, it's relatively neutral at the number given. So I think it's a good starting point for us to really think about.
Scott?
Yeah, so I provided this spreadsheet that was separate from the packet. I don't know if, Brittany, if you can share it with the screen, but the detail that management put together was great, bottoms up, right? It's costs first, then you back into what the revenue needs to be, and then it's capital, and I guess the working group in conjunction with that have their plans. And one thing that I feel like the board really needs to hear from a financial perspective is where cash investments are, total, as an organization. This is in the audited financial statements. It's in every year, the last 5 years. It's always there. Note 2 talks about liquidity, basically solvency. How is the organization is it adequately capitalized, or what is it? What can they convert to cash? It's a really important number, because as a board, you have the discretion to move funds from one designation to another. So if it's RRF, if it's CARF, if it's operating, and what's getting lost in everything, the way it's presented is, oh, well, it's money in this account, or it's money in that account. Well, you can move it any which way you want to. It doesn't matter. So yes, there's resolutions, there's all these things that you need to follow, but you can also bend them, change them, modify them. So this sheet goes through, it shows the exact balance sheet. So the bottom line with the blue line underneath it, that's your liquid cash year to year, cash and investments. That already backs out the stream and wetlands account that's already designated. And that's something that needs to be considered going forward, because it's in the capital plan as a budget, but it's a separate line item that we're already backing out. So it needs to be an apples to apples comparison. I did have to project forward a little bit with some of the prepaid expenses and everything, but basically it's saying, hey, if we operate this, we do the 923, we're gonna still have $9.5 million of cash in investments. Maybe you want that. I'm just saying that is the number. Now what happens with that? That's operating, that's CARF, that's RRF. That's all of them together, lumped in. But that's, I think, a really important number to consider. And I'm not saying what the number is or what it has to be. It's just, those 5 years from 2020 through the end of 2024, those are the numbers. They're not being screwed with, they're from the balance sheet. So as you plan forward, it's more of where are we, what do we need to do, how do we look at this? Because anybody with financial acumen is gonna look to the audited financials first and say, whoa, there might be a lot of cash. How can we explain that away? I've heard board members in years past say we have a lot of cash. I'm not saying that, I'm repeating what I've heard even when I was the chair. So just as we go through this process, I think a really important thing, and working with the working group, I know we're about to get there, but that is a number that I feel like needs to be analyzed more and really understood by everyone here. So that's it. That's all I wanted to mention.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What is the average, if there is an industry average, that could be taken out that still is responsible enough?
So from an organizational standpoint, this is really high. And I'll say this from a standpoint of, if you think about capital expenditures, so this is assuming, where's my balance at the end of the year? Well, the great thing about Reston Association is we collect dues already throughout this process. These numbers already back out the excess cash that we take, because it's already taken out the deferred revenue. But by March of that next year, we have collected all of the cash we need that will make a profit that we can spend. So basically, you only need a percentage of, my opinion, you only need a percentage of potential overruns on your capital expenditures for that year. Everything else could be planned and moved forward. Others say, hey, let's keep a reserve. I'm not arguing about that, but that's what other businesses do. how much are we gonna need to spend? Maybe, we know we're gonna spend a little bit more the next few years, we'll add some. In terms of cash, operating cash, usually I need to be able to cover 1 month of expenses. 1 month of expenses from the organization, that's $1 to $2 million. So we're at 9.
I would disagree with that. For an organization like
Except
this.
we're not going to debate that tonight.
No, but
No, the point's good, but not debated, okay?
right, no, the point,
Please.
it's
No,
it's
you're
just
right.
a level,
You're right.
it's a level of what that is. But
Okay.
the average, what we have the annual capital expenditures going back from 2020 to 24. Over that time period, you're at 3.5 million. So that's 3 times the annual amount. Plus, we get the extra amount of cash that we know that because we're setting the budget. So it's almost 4 times.
I just want to clarify, though, that this is your opinion. This definitely does not represent the opinion of the fiscal committee that we only need $1 million in the bank account. I think that was a little bit misleading. That we've talked about this multiple times in the fiscal committee.
Well,
And
right, and
wait, hold on. It's misleading if it's represented that is the opinion of the fiscal committee. Most of the fiscal committee strongly disagrees with what you're saying.
Okay, well,
You
wait,
can say what
no,
you
no, no,
want, but
no,
it's
no,
misleading to
Okay,
represent that to the
okay.
board
Rule
that
of-
way.
Okay, calling it, I'm calling it.
May I get involved and just end it?
Are you done, Scott? With your time? You can come back and react, okay?
Let me just say, please, folks, this is an important topic. Scott brings up an important topic that we've talked about at our last meeting, and we've talked about it in several meetings. The board ought to be aware of these things, okay? Tonight, we can't debate it and diagnose it, okay? That's all I want to, we just can't do it tonight. What he's saying, there's a lot to be said for it, and I'm glad he said it, but we can't go any further tonight, not enough time.
Okay, Bob?
I want to make 2 comments. First, I'll react to Scott. I think, first of all, you have to look at this as what Scott has proposed is a point-in-time analysis, which is the balance sheet, as opposed to the income statement, which are the flows. And consider that as you look at it, and consider also that RA is not a for-profit company. Okay? And it's not that he's wrong, the numbers are the numbers. But I think you have to look at RA differently than you would look at just about everything else. And to Izzy's point about, is there a metric? There isn't any other organization just like Reston Association. It's not like a commercial bank where you have 200 years of statistical information to analyze things from. Very different. Second point, on the inflation factor, I tend to agree that it's going to be underestimated, but as you plan forward 2% each year, you've added 10% in 5 years to the overall total. This is not a one and done. This is an ongoing thing. And I think what you will see, and particularly if the bottom falls out of the economy, is things are going to change rapidly and dramatically. And I'll leave it at that.
Change in what way?
For the worse. We could talk about it later, but there's a lot to unbundle if you're looking at the overall economy. I think if you look at the overall costs, where we incur costs, which are in hard goods, in motors and so on, those prices are substantially greater. But they have, even though individually they have increased a lot, they're not a big dollar item for the organization as a whole. Where we do have the greatest impact is in people costs, insurance. Those are the 2 big ones. And in the people costs, most of the, according to the work that staff has already done is going to be in benefits. And those are things you got to offer or people will leave. They will leave. They may be dissatisfied with, that they didn't get a raise, but if you start monkeying around with their benefits, they will be out the door.
Yeah.
Oh, one other comment. I just want to say, you've done a great job of forecasting. When I looked at what you forecast versus your budget, your revenues are like 0.3%. Yeah, your revenues are 0.3%. That's amazing. I mean, I haven't seen anything that, my business career ever. And, and your expenses are like 0.5%. So I think, Mac, you were right on when you said you guys have really got a good handle on forecasting. Now, the future is going to change. And as Bob has said, it can change overnight. But right now, you've got a good handle on it.
Thank you. Margaret?
Just one question. Unfortunately, I have done this a few years, and I should absolutely positively be able to say, yes, this is the answer, but I would like confirmation. Am I correct that part of what we have always strived for is $10 million in reserves? Do I have that wrong?
Yes, you have it wrong.
I'm asking staff, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it's 10 million. I mean, we've been trying to keep 110% of the
Okay.
10-year average.
That's,
That may be what
thank
you're
you.
thinking of?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, that equates to, 4 million and change right now.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to move on to Pete's side of the equation, if possible.
The only response I have is on inflation.
Okay.
The most important thing is we're setting the budget.
Okay.
Real quick, as we set the budget, the biggest fixed cost is people costs. So you're not going to have to deal with inflation if you're setting people's salaries. So whatever that is, 60, 70% of the budget of the costs is that. So yes, other inflation things, they go up, they go down. Just know that we set that. We set inflation on that as an organization.
Dave?
Just a couple of comments on the operating piece. And this isn't to be discussed necessarily. I'm just throwing this out for, hopefully for our meeting in September. Fee pyramid's going to be talked about in September. Are things done for this or not yet? They'll be added in September. I don't know if they're in yet.
There are no adjustments based on the fee pyramid yet, correct?
The member suggestions that are in the budget passed that you showed, Ed, maybe we look at something that can be done in '25. You have some funds that might be available in '25, might help out a little bit. I think we need to look at 2027 earlier, because I think a lot of things, I mean, we can talk more about it with capital, but 27 is going to jump out and get us again, because we're underfunding capital again in '26 for a lot of good reasons. We don't talk about it, but I think we just ought to think about it earlier than we have in the past. We've talked about it late, and so we add a percentage. It'd be nice to do a little more work on it this time. And just the only other thing is, if there's any specific productivity or efficiency actions that maybe are rolled in here or could be, you want to bring some of those to the fiscal meeting in September.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Over to you, Peter.
All right, let's have some fun and talk about capital. So I'll be very brief. I realize it's 9:21, so I'm going to hit the highest of the high points and happy to answer any questions. So what have we learned this year about the capital improvement plan? There's three things that come to mind for me. The first one is start earlier. This is actually the fourth draft CIP that both the board and the fiscal committee has seen this year. In my first 2 years here, the first draft came in September. So we are actually in a much better place from a planning perspective than we've been the last few years. The second thing we've learned this year is that better planning comes with better data. Our facility condition assessments have done a great job of pointing us in the right direction. I've heard Lisa say at the fiscal committee many times, we don't have a facilities plan. I don't think we have a facilities plan quite yet either, but we are much closer to having one than we've had in the past. 10 of our pools have now been assessed. They are included in the capital plan. There are 5 left to be assessed. Our community buildings have been assessed. We don't have those reports yet, but we will have them before the next budget. And 40 of the 102 bridges have been assessed. So we are moving towards having them all done this fall, which is great news for us. The third thing I think we've learned is that looking out 10 years is a much better tool for the association than 5. I know we've always used the 10-year average, but looking at a 10-year plan, I think as a team here is good news for us just from a planning perspective. So I want to thank the Capital Working Group. Many of you are here tonight. Bob, Dave, John, I know John's on the phone, Matt, and President Johnson couldn't join us tonight, but we had 2 very successful meetings over the summer. We debated all of the funding models that have been presented throughout the year. The funding models that were proposed by staff are not being recommended by the committee, but is a very similar model. So when we were chasing new funding models through the spring and summer, the goal of those models was to have a consistent contribution to capital every year. The positives to the 10-year average are that we're looking ahead. The negatives are you'll see a lot of spikes in the funding based on the projects that are proposed. So I think by looking at the recommendations that the working group has made specifically on having a stable funding model of around $3.7 million every year, it not only gives staff a target every year, but it allows for stability in the assessment, which is what we've been chasing since we started this effort. So I think we landed in a good place. I know everyone read the Capital Working Group report cover to cover, so I'm not going to cover it tonight, but there were many, many great recommendations that came out of the working group, so thank you to everyone that participated. I want to hit on 3 of the drivers of the CIP, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Lake Newport Pool is the first project I'd like to talk about. Earlier this year, I came to the board and said, in the 25 CIP, we collected $580,000 for a chip out and white coat of the Lake Newport Pool. We know that the Lake Newport Pool has an issue with losing water. All of our pools lose water. That's not an anomaly, but it is losing water at a rapid rate. So what we're going to do in September is conduct 3 different tests to try and figure out what that issue is. We had 2 different groups come out and look at the problem. The first was FEA, who does our condition assessments for us. The second is Titan Pool Service, who many of you should be familiar with. You've approved many contracts for Titan Pool Service in the past. They both recommended holding an extra $500,000 to fix that problem before next year. So that was something that was not shown in last year's CIP that is a driver of this year's CIP. I think staff made the right call in not performing the chip out white coat this year. So overall, it'd be an over $1 million investment, but we're holding about $550,000 right now because we spent about $30 just to try to fix some cracks for the summer. So we made it through the summer, which is wonderful. We're going to do some testing in September, and we'll be able to come back late September, early October with what the best recommendation is there. The second driver is Lake Newport Tennis. So many of you know that we held a community meeting on Lake Newport Tennis earlier this year, got a lot of great feedback from the community. We've been showing in the CIP for the last 2 years about $1.7 million over 2 years as an investment. We got a solid cost estimate back at $1.9 million. So I feel like from a cost perspective, we've been tracking correctly, but it is a major driver of the CIP. Up until about, 7 minutes before we published this budget, we were holding a significant amount of money in 26 for Lake Newport. We made a decision to move the bulk of that funding into 27. Mostly, there are really 2 reasons for that. One, to try to keep the assessment at a place where we thought we could have a solid conversation with the board. And 2, because based on permitting and site plans and other things, it would probably be the 4th quarter of 26 before we could actually do any work at Lake Newport Tennis. So we've included funding for 4th quarter of 26, but there is, if you've memorized your CIP, a significant investment in Lake Newport Tennis in 27. So that's definitely a conversation piece for the fall. And the third piece is Hook Road. So I know we've spent significant amounts of time talking about Hook Road. The Hook Road ball field portion of the project is underway right now. The ball fields are actually being moved, not as we speak, it's too late for that, but it is happening right now, which is great. The second part of the project was to install a permanent restroom, and we've been holding about $250,000 for next year on top of the money that we think will be left from the ball field investment, be around $330,000 for that work. We've gotten some cost estimates back that I would say are unfavorable, maybe 3 times that number. So we're still working it. We're not ready to make a recommendation at this time, but it will be a conversation piece this fall as a driver. The first cost estimate we saw was very unfavorable. And there's utility work involved, and there's other things that come with that. And The permanent restroom has been to DRB once and was knocked back relatively quickly, so there's still lots of diligence to do on Hook Road, but it is a conversation piece for this fall. I would like to just spend a minute and thank all of the RA staff for their work on the CIP. This was a major engagement effort from a staff perspective, and I think the plan reflects the best professional views of everyone on the team. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to talk about funding models, but I wanted to keep it at the highest level just because we're at 9:30.
Bob, and then Sean.
Can we get an Excel version?
Sure.
Could you send one, please? I will monkey with the numbers.
Sure.
Two comments. One is. Condition assessment was one of the best ideas you guys have had. I mean, it clearly gives you far more good data points than the reserve. Second thing is, I saw the recommendations, and I know I've said this before, I think we really have to let the membership know that when they pay their assessment for capital, they're paying for the operations, the maintenance, and its ultimate replacement. That's the equity associated with that. If you fail to do that, I mean, you're pushing out unfavorably into the future the replacement on people who didn't use the facility. So I saw your things in there, and I really, that's something for me that I think is very, very important. So, and the only other thing is in your capital funding model, there are those periods when, in theory, when you do the 3.7 million, the amount of capital that you actually spend is less. But,
Right.
there's nothing, when you have an aging infrastructure like Reston, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And when it goes wrong, in a pool, it can be millions. I mean, we all have the condition assessment, everybody uses their best judgment, but, you got to keep in mind that kind of little bit of cushion is there to cover those dramatic changes that can happen. I mean, we had an earthquake here.
Right.
Who would have ever thought we would have had an earthquake in Northern Virginia, but we did, and think of what that could mean to a pool. Huge crack, and all of a sudden you're talking about, well, you know what I mean. So the short answer is, I think the funding model is good, but.
That's why we have insurance, though.
Well.
Okay. Let's keep moving, because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Any other comments, reactions, people online?
Madam President,
Yes, of course.
one of the things that the Capital Working Group took into consideration in coming up with the recommendation that we have a capital budget of 3.7 was the fact that we already had $4 million, forgive me, $4 million in RRF funds that are unallocated. Those funds grow through our investments, and those funds are also added to when projects come in under budget. What the Capital Working Group also recognized, and I was honored to be on it, that group was, there will be years when our spend is not 3.7, but less. A couple of years where it'll be more, but most of the time it's less. And the difference can be added to the existing $4 million, which is unallocated. So I think the working group was responsible in coming up with recognizing that we have a $4 million unallocated RRF fund to which we will be adding in many of the years over the next 10, so that there will be a significant cushion to handle the kind of unexpected calamity that was recently referenced. So I think we're in good shape in that direction. I wouldn't want to have our membership think we're engaged in a Chicken Little exercise.
Dave, Lisa? No, you good? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you have the floor.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. Just in case people don't know, we have been underfunding. By underfunding, let me make sure I'm I need to be clearer on that. We have funded less than we've spent. Doesn't mean we're underfunded, okay? Things are getting done, okay? Everything that needs to get done is getting done, okay? But this will be the third year in a row where we've used spending as our funding and not the 10-year average, which we used forever. Since 2014, we've used the 10-year average until 2024. Now we've used spending. So the timing of this is really important because if we keep doing this, the next 4 years, the spending goes up again. And so we got to be ready. So I think we have enough information, I believe, without having a final dictated, here you go, to be able to do 2026. That's my guess, that we may not have a final plan that is written up in a resolution in place before October or something, but we'll know enough to do 26 and probably 27.
And that's the 3.15 million?
With the offsets.
I'm sorry,
That's
the-
right.
To fund 3.15 million, correct?
That's right.
Right, yes, yep, exactly. And the other thing is, minimum balance is a big deal, okay? In fact, based on last year's reserve study, okay, it said we had to get a minimum balance to grow to over $5 million, okay? I would bet that out of this work that's being done, the minimum balance is going to be reduced, okay, to a much lower number than it used to be. But that work needs to be done. In fact, an argument can be made that maybe CARF has a little bit of reserve as well, but that number is going to be I think, going to be much smaller than it's been in the past. But that's work to be done. But other than that, I think we've the point's been made, and I'll make it again. But we got to do this condition assessments on a regular basis. Is it every 5 years? You pick a number. Staff knows how to pick the number better than anybody else in the room. But it's going to make these numbers so much better than they've ever been in the past. And why we've carried so much in the past was more uncertainty, which we'll do away with.
Good question. So when we meet in September, are you going to bring the 10-year like the 10-year spend?
Yeah, so it was included in the materials, but we plan to
okay,
bring it
sorry.
in. Yeah, we
Okay.
plan to bring it,
Okay.
yes.
Bob?
Just to give a little context to how the number was it wasn't dreamt up, it's
Right.
based on fact.
Right.
Looked at the totality of the capital assets that the organization owns, and then calculated a reasonable reserve to cover if you over the estimated life of the entire portfolio, what you would spend, what you should put aside in any given year. So that over 30 years, not 10 years, that there would be, you would likely, without having to go borrow money, that would be the number that you would have to come up to. So it is based on accepted industry standards as to how the values were attached and the useful lives were attached. They're not tax lives, they're industry-derived metrics. So again, it wasn't just four of us sat around in a circle and thought up this number. It was based on good analysis and good data.
Scott?
The only comment I will say is, the working group, straight line or flat allocation over a period of time as you look at the assessment, the conditional assessment of the assets is reasonable approach. There's lots of ways you could do it. I think it's fine. The only point I would make is back to what I said before about it's total cash, it's operating cash and triple RF and CARF. That's really what the organization needs to be looking at, because you can move from one to the other as needed. And I recommend the working group go back and look at the requirement of the amount of reserve. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. We have 1 hour left for executive session. So if it's okay, I could keep going on this topic, but I won't. Yeah. Do you wanna-
Would it be acceptable to ask each board member what they would like financial committee to consider when they, as
Yeah.
I believe Lisa asked us to do?
We can do that, yeah, great idea.
Just go around quickly and
Do
see.
you want to start?
Sure. I have looked through, obviously I know there will be lots of tweaks that come through. While I don't think that the suggested assessment in this draft is unreasonable for many, many reasons, I do recognize that our members will find a 7% increase extremely difficult to swallow. And I would like to see if there is any wiggle room in there that the finance committee feels would be safe and fiscally responsible. Not just budgeting to the penny to budget to the penny, but fiscally responsible.
Erwin?
I think the number that's being suggested of 923 is likely to actually increase if we increase the amount of pool time that we give. And so it's a question of what do we feel the members want? And it may be well to ask people to tell us what they want. Here is one thing, and if you want that, then this is what it's going to cost. And be specific about it so that we get clear guidance.
I agree. I share trepidation over the increase, not just for this year, but it's 275 up until 2030. I'm assuming that number is actually the difference. The delta is going to be higher. One of the things that I think we should look at is efficiencies, to your point, and I don't know if you meant efficiencies to the point of, are we using more technology to do more? Because I don't think RA has had that digital transformation. And I would welcome that as a way to do more with less just during this time crunch, because to Bob's point, I do believe it's going to be harder times, not easier times. And then I think the one thing that I had a question on, which I don't, and Ed explained it to me, but I'm sort of dumber than rocks sometimes, is the retirement contributions jumped so much to 18%, and I know it's because of the salary bands that people are at. So I'm just questioning this for the 5-year period. How's the salary band going to look? Because that seems like a huge driver. So those are my comments. Matt?
I think the current proposed budget is, it's based in good sense. Looking ahead, there's unavoidable costs, due to inflation, insurance benefits. And it also, I think, sticks to our values. The members told us clearly, maintain what we own, maintain the level of service. 15 pools, et cetera. And this budget is responsive to that. Always, I agree with opportunities for efficiency, and if we can find them and implement them, great. So I totally agree with you there. But this doesn't represent more. This doesn't represent unnecessary or excess spending by any means. I think if we look in the last several years, we have underfunded. We've increased assessments below the rate of inflation. And not that this is catching up, but it is normalizing. And that's, if we were consistent for years and years and years without keeping up with inflation, we're going backwards, and you're going to end up in trouble. So this sticks with that, and I think it's healthy.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I believe the rate increase is 8.8%. Am I incorrect? Okay. So 8.8%, based on the feedback that I get from members, is a lot more than they want to spend or expect the organization to stick to. I think that we're in a situation where there may be some excess funds that we can use to bring down that rate, but I really think that we really, as a board, need to start looking at the operating budgets. We certainly have had staff look at CIP and have all congratulated staff for their work there, which has been wonderful. But we need to start looking at the operating budgets. They've been going up past the rate of inflation. That is not typical of a nonprofit. It just is, it's not typical of a nonprofit organization to increase their budgets beyond inflation. I agree with Director Santa that we need to find efficiencies and technologies to make the work of staff more efficient and easier. And I would encourage the fiscal committee to bring back recommendations of areas where we can reduce the 8.8% increase to the membership. I would also, as I usually do during this meeting every year, ask the board if there is a percentage increase or a range that we would like to stick to. Because I think that is a guiding star that the staff can use to bring us future draft budgets. I also understand that the fee pyramid is not in here. I was hoping that even if we didn't have the exact fee pyramid to take a look at, that staff would have taken a gander at what they would recommend, because that actually puts more revenue into our revenue bucket and could have brought forth a draft one budget that didn't have quite as high of an increase. And my fear is that this is going to hit the streets. And we've already seen 2 articles this week about things that were in the packet. I won't be surprised if this is the 3rd, and that board members will start getting some emails from the membership. And that pressure usually comes later in the process, but I would certainly expect it. And so I would encourage Fiscal to help us create those buckets, and for staff to present in the future how we did on one of the slides of the member suggestions and the dollar amounts for each of those, kind of present some type of a la carte way so that the board has a method of evaluating what we could do. Thank you.
Jalal and then John.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. One, I actually appreciate the process that we are going through and the staff have gone through. I commend them for what they've done. Number 2, this is something that comes up every time. I would ask staff to have a look at the staff numbers that they have. And I would specifically look at covenants and potentially see if there are some things there, if there's some juggling that can be made. And if there is, what would be the impact of that? And if that number is the number, then at least tell us that the impact is X, Y, Z, or if, priorities, et cetera. So that's one area that I would recommend. And if that number has to stay the way it is, then at least we have the basis. We know what it is. We can defend it. The other thing is, Director Juszczyk asked, do we have a number? And this is something that we've gone through before. While I don't have a specific number in mind, because I would be a fool if I did, I would recommend that perhaps something around the rate of inflation close to it would be a good starting point, just to keep up. That would be my recommendation. And then the last thing I would say is I would ask the staff to also look at priorities. What if there are some things that could be deferred or done later based on priorities? And again, if we have an understanding of what those things are, it would help us defend it or just have a conversation about accepting some of those priority changes. And that's all I have.
Thank you. John?
So I keep coming back to the fact that we have a community survey that tells us what a membership wants. And what we have done during my time on the board is continue to provide the membership with what they asked for. We have 24,000, 23,000 households and 63,000 members. And I don't ever see more than 25 people stand at that podium and say the assessment is too high. Quite the opposite. They want more services than what we're providing. And I hope Fiscal will take that seriously as they look at the budget. Yes, I don't want to have gold-plated personnel. I don't think we have that. I continually remind folks that the average HOA fee in this country is $3,500 a year. We're nowhere near that, and yet we're providing a level of service that is unequaled by any HOA anywhere in the country because that's what our membership wants. So I'm somewhat concerned when multiple poses are struck to say, oh, we don't have to spend this kind of money. The membership wants us to deliver this level of service. Could we realize some cost savings by enhanced use of IT? No doubt. Question would be, are we going to spend more on software and hardware than we're going to realize in cost savings? That's a question for another day. But generally speaking, I think we are providing services to a very large population. We're providing the services that they ask for, and we're doing it at a very reasonable number compared to any other HOA in the country. And we're well below our cap number. So I don't get too frightened by an 8.8% assessment. I don't want it to be inflated unnecessarily, but I come back to our most important thing is not the number on the assessment, but the level of service. And one last thing, being as president of a cluster and as somebody who deals with covenants on a regular basis, one of our hallmarks over the last several years has been the improved customer service experience of people who interact with covenants, both clusters interacting with covenants and individuals going through the process. That's a change from prior years, and I wouldn't want to see us retrench at all in that direction. I think we need to make that covenants process for our membership as smooth as it possibly can be, and I think we've accomplished that under the Mr. Adams leadership. So I wouldn't want to see any backsliding in that area. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, budget folks, for fiscal folks, for finance folks, whatever terminology you would like to use for today. Thank you for joining. I think we're going to get a motion to go into executive session. We are at 9.
Vice President Sandin, can I just wrap up so everyone can expect what they're going to see? So one of the suggestions that came up was a cafeteria-style menu. We've actually talked about that as staff. We've historically done that in October, talking about that sort of options, given all the different feedback points that are going to come in for you. Some will be reductions, some might be additions, depending on different feedback mechanisms. We will have that for you at your September 25th meeting, along with a recap of all the different inputs.
Thank you, Mac. So we're going to go to executive session. Do we want to do a 15-minute extension to 10:45? No?
I think you're going to need more. Why would you do
We
10:45?
Okay, we're not going to do any motions. Let's just do a motion to executive session. We're going to end this at 10:30.
move to,
Move to convene into executive session to consult with legal counsel and discuss contractual and personnel matters.
All those in favor? Aye.
I
Any nays? Any oppositions? Nope. Unanimous.
It's the final count.
Recording in progress.
John back? Not yet.
We're just waiting for John.
Good.
Can we excuse Ashley? You guys text her just now. Okay.
Am I good to go?
Yes.
Move that the Reston Association Board of Directors certifies to the best of each member's knowledge that only those matters appropriate for executive session of a contractual nature involving personnel matters or involving consultation with counsel were discussed or considered by the board during executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to take John's muted. Yay.
Madam Vice President, I'm going to be voting against the motion.
Okay, so 6-1-0, motion passes.
Volunteer interviews?
Yes,
All right. Move to approve Heather Rao and Gozdi Tenieri for the position of member to the Design Review Board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Can we do the rest of the slate?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Move to approve Eden Anderson, Dave Kerr, and Lisa Torkeltab to the positions of member of the Land Use Advisory and chair to the Fiscal Committee and vice chair to the Fiscal Committee, respectively.
Madam President, can I suggest that we divide that question so that people don't think that Dave Kerr is joining the Land Use Committee? Because I know he doesn't want to.
I did
The
say
motion was
respectively,
clear.
so it is divided.
Motion was clear.
I'm okay with the way the motion, you did say respectively,
Yeah.
comma, respectively. It's in the order that it was, so I think we could move. All those in favor?
Aye.
John?
Thing.
Okay, unanimous. We are at the agenda.
It wasn't unanimous, ma'am. I abstained.
Oh, you abstained. 6-0-1. Thank you, John. Moving to the draft agenda for September 11th. Do we want to discuss edits so the motion is not a pause and go game?
Move to approve the draft agenda. You want the motion now, or you're waiting for the changes?
Do you want to do the changes first so that we can just?
I don't have our other new business items. I have a question when we get, but I would go ahead and throw the motion.
Move to approve the draft agenda topics as presented for the public budget hearing and the regular Board of Directors meeting agenda on September 11th, 2025.
Second.
Discussion?
I would like to see in the CEO update, I know we're going to get pool numbers in the budget piece of the second meeting, but I'd like to see in the CEO update all the other summer camps numbers, all of that, unless you want to postpone it to the second meeting of September. I'm fine with that, but.
They'll be in the fee pyramid report.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And then my second question is, what are we trying to decide on the PRC amendment? Because I thought that was moving forward. I thought we made those decisions.
I can answer this. This is relating to the golf course. My understanding is that the Land Use Committee is seeking guidance from the board after some misunderstandings when they had scheduled golf course development discussion in the past. And now that a PRC plan has been filed, the Land Use Committee would like to know if the board would like them to take it up and send a recommendation to the board, or if the board's going to handle it itself.
Okay. So should we have the Land Use Committee chair as part of that, or?
I didn't, that's right, the chair continues until a chair is actually established.
Yeah.
Maybe we could establish a chair at some point. That'd be nice.
Yes, it would. But right now she's staying because no one else volunteered, so.
Madam Vice President,
Yes.
when we had a conversation among some of us a couple of days ago, weren't we going to get as part of the CEO update, a report out on the PRC amendment? Wasn't that going to be part of this CEO update?
That is correct. That was an item.
Can we make that change?
Yes.
you see the letters start with B, C, and D. Maybe that was intended to be A.
Oh, maybe.
I don't care the order, ma'am. I'm just,
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, yeah, I think,
Director
there's no
Santa,
A
I'm
there.
fine if you want to represent the land
BC.
use
Should be
committee's
an
stuff
Sure.
on the golf course as well.
that's fine.
However, I'm just saying, if the land use committee asks, then maybe somebody should be talking related to what they're
I
asking for.
won't be here on the 11th. So,
Okay, so then it won't be you. So then can we ask the chair to
okay.
just be around, not to give a presentation, it's still Max, but just to clarify any questions from the board, because it's come up before that the land use committee wasn't represented.
Okay. Any other further edits? Okay. So we're good? We'd like to vote on the amended agenda as is. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, wonderful.
Madam
And
Vice President,
Yes.
Now-
I'd like it noted that we've concluded our business at 10:28.
No,
and
no,
I'll
no.
get that information
We have not.
communicated to our president.
We have not. We have not, because this is new business, and I said I have 2 items.
That's fine.
So, one is, we have gotten away from doing videos, and I'd like to see if there are videos that we would like to have for the next meeting, so that we're not sitting in presentations, we have our information, and we are having more active discussions. I would propose for the next meeting that we have a video on the pyramid report, the CEO update, and the strategic plan implementation.
staff, how do you
Any objections,
feel?
staff, to those 3?
I'm sorry, I have pyramid report, strategic plan update.
And CEO update.
Got it.
Is any objections to those?
Can we also ask our communications director, because I know in the past she's told me it takes a bit of time to prepare those, so I'd like to hear from her if that's possible.
It's more the individual staff members to create the presentation, so
I need somebody to extend the meeting by
5 minutes.
5 minutes to 10:35.
Motion.
So move.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, 6-1-0, motion carries.
Sorry, just an administrative thing. The last time we did quarterly staff updates, they were videos but not agendized. September is typically a time when we do third quarter updates. I was just wondering, before I tee up staff to do those reports, do we want videos not on the agenda? Or do we not want to do third quarter updates? Because they're due and everyone's asking and I want to make sure we hit it.
I thought the way we had discussed it with Mac was that those should live in the CEO update, high-level keynote points. But if I misremember the conversation, John Irwin can correct me.
The conversation was we wanted the videos, but that we wanted them not to have a separate agenda item, but to be incorporated into the CEO's update. So that if somebody had a question as a result of viewing the videos, a board member could ask our CEO. The idea being that the CEO would be responsible for the staff updates, but that we'd still have them so that the videos could be shown to the membership while we were in executive session, as an example.
Okay. So let's do what John just outlined.
So right now, we're only showing cluster outreach. We can get all the rest teed up for the 25th and just stick them in the CEO update.
That's fine, if it
Great,
fits in the
okay,
agenda.
great.
We'll talk about it in the agenda meeting. And then the other item?
The other item is we have seen some news articles that have come out in the last, 48 hours, 24 hours? And we've also received some feedback from the members related to them. I'm really concerned that we make sure that we get accurate information out from RA's perspective, even when there are news articles that we did not ask to come out. And so I was wondering if Mac, you could help us understand, when we see when we see those go public, and apparently there might have been some legal concerns, I don't know, it's what the article suggested. Do we ever call the news reporters and go, off the record and give them information and point them to materials that they can use to get better information? Because I'm concerned that our voice is not out there, and other people are now speaking and saying what RA should or should not do.
Can you have
And the
3
members
minutes?
deserve to really have the facts.
So I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version. We talk to the press and the usual reporters on an ongoing basis and message our message. If a reporter is writing a story that relates to a legal matter, we have no comment because we have a legal process here. And that process and when and how we can comment, we should really discuss in exec session. But generally, we are very proactive with the press. And I know Kara does a lot, so I'll just let her quit.
Sure, and Jennifer, to your point, the one you are referring to, since it was a potentially pending, I did consult with Tony when I first heard from the reporter, and his advice that we do not comment on any kind of active cases. What I did in that scenario was told the reporter that and directed him to relevant sections of the deed and the resolutions for, and to do with what he could.
Madam President?
Yes.
It struck me in the instance, if we're all talking about the same story, it struck me, and counsel, I'm going to disagree with your opinion in this circumstance, where the question on that case had already been part of our public meeting, where the question in that case had already been part of a public covenant meeting. It struck me that the reporter might have benefited from having access or being directed to those materials so that it wasn't a one-sided story that made our staff and the board look arbitrary and capricious. And so I understand we don't want to be talking about litigation. I got it. But in this case, there was public information that the reporter could have been directed to get a complete story.
We have 60 seconds.
And can I just close because this is my topic?
Yep.
And I think Kara said that she pointed them to the publicly available information. I would kind of implore staff maybe to go back and see if there is anything else. Is there our own press release that has nothing legal related to it that we can get the facts out to the members? Because we all probably want to comment, and we will reserve that. But again, the facts need to get out to the members somehow. So on any story that comes out, if we can talk off the record and give information, not just point to materials, or find some other way to get information out to the members that is accurate. Press release, member comment, I don't know, a blog, at something.
And we're
I would
exploring
appreciate
those
it. Thank
options.
you.
Yes,
Okay, meeting has adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
And I, of course, would encourage us to look at our guidelines